Chapter 651. This? Oh no. Not good. Seeing that Obsidian had used Susanoo to capture another member of Amatsukami from the ground, all the Umbu of Mai, like Obsidian, were sure that this was the real body of the member of Amatsukami, and they all exclaimed. Under the control of Susanoo, the corner of Obsidian's mouth rose slightly. You're finally caught by me. And Hyojin, who was being strangled by Susanoo, was struggling violently at this time, but because the power of Susanoo was too great, not to mention breaking free, even breathing was a little difficult for him. Looking at Hyojin, who was caught in Susanoo's hand, panting violently, it seemed that his breathing was not smooth. Obsidian chuckled and said, "See? This is the absolute strength gap between us." With that, Obsidian glanced at the Umbu of Mai around with disdain, and then said to Hyojin, "This absolute strength gap is not something that you can make up for by playing with one or two puppet clones and creating one or two explosions. No matter how you resist, how you struggle, you are doomed to fail, and everything you do is in vain." Obsidian's words were like a heavy hammer, hitting the hearts of the Umbu of Mai hard. Some Umbu with weak will looked at the Susan in front of them, and looked at the members of Amatsukami who were struggling in the hands of Susanoo, and their hearts were filled with despair. In their opinion, even such a powerful member of Amatsukami couldn't defeat this Susanoo. They had no hope. Clang, at this time, an Umbu let go of the long sword in his hand, and let it fall to the ground, as if he had accepted his fate. This seemed to be a signal, and despair began to spread quickly on the battlefield. Some Umbu even took off the masks on their faces, revealing the faces of fear under the mask. Akagami said angrily, "What are you doing? Do you think you can survive by retreating?" A despairing Umbu said with a numb face, "The Akatsuki can destroy our village with just a few people. What can we do now?" Akagami was furious, but there was nothing he could do. The haze of the destruction of the village has been hidden in the heart of every Mai ninja, and the spirit of the Mai ninja has been swallowed up little by little, so when all the Mai ninja heard the words Akatsuki, they couldn't help but remember the tragedy of the night when the village was destroyed. Obsidian smiled and looked at Kakashi on the other side. His face was full of mockery. Although Kakashi was silent, there was no fear in his eyes, and his eyes were still sharp. Suddenly Hyojin, who everyone thought was just a doppelganger, rushed towards Obsidian's Susanoo, and seemed to want to rescue the real body trapped in the hands of Susanoo. Obsidian glanced at him and said with a smile, "What can a mere doppelganger do? Do you want to rush over and explode?" Although his tone was relaxed, Obsidian was really worried that the captured member of Amatsukami would want to use the self-explosion of the doppelganger to commit suicide in order to keep the secret of Amatsukami, so he changed his mind and threw Hyojin, who he thought was the real body of Susanoo, into the Kamui space. In Obito's view, he now had the protection of Susanoo, and there was also the warning from the underground, so he was not afraid of any variables. Even if he guessed the real body of the opponent and threw the opponent's doppelganger into the godly might space, it would not have any effect, because at this moment, no one in the field could break his Susanoo. This was the gap of absolute strength. The twisting vortex suddenly appeared and quickly disappeared, and along with it, Hyojin, who was held in the palm of Susanoo, disappeared. After dealing with Hyojin, who was held in the hand of Susanoo, Obsidian turned his head and looked at the suspected doppelganger of Hyojin, who was rushing towards him, with a playful expression on his face. At this time, Kuroto was really a little curious. Where exactly did Amatsukami recruit this new member? Because whether it is tactical attainment or mental quality, this new member of Amatsukami is impeccable, especially the doppelganger jutsu, which gives him a headache until now, because even with his Manjikyu Sharingan, he can't find the slightest flaw in this doppelganger. His previous experience in distinguishing shadow doppelganger is completely ineffective in the face of this doppelganger jutsu. At this moment, Obsidian's expression became solemn, because he found that Hyojin, who was rushing towards his suspected doppelganger, not only did not show any signs of self-explosion, but he even put his hands together, as if he was about to use some kind of ninjutsu. What does he want to do? Instantly, a doubt surged in Obsidian's heart. For some reason, even though he was sure that the opponent had no means to break his Susanoo, he still felt a faint sense of foreboding in his heart. Mai's group of Umbu also cast their eyes on Hyojin at this moment. Like Obsidian, they couldn't tell whether this Hyojin was the real body or a doppelganger, but they couldn't help but focus on him. In just a few short breaths, Hyojin suddenly attacked in front of Obsidian's emerald blue Susanoo, and his palms suddenly opened at this moment. And when he saw a flash of fluorescence in Hyojin's palm, Obsidian's pupils shrank sharply, and he was shocked. Dust release? Swish! At the moment when no one reacted, the fluorescence in Hyojin's palm suddenly soared, as if it was out of control, and drowned the emerald blue Susanoo in front of him. Crack! After resisting the fluorescence for a moment, the emerald blue Susanoo shattered inch by inch into countless fragments. Taking advantage of the short time bought by his Susanoo, Obsidian made a prompt decision and immediately launched Kamui and hid in the Kamui space. After hiding in the Kamui space, he panted and scolded. How could he possibly know dust release? Isn't Inoki the only one in the ninja world who knows dust release? This despicable guy obviously knows dust release. But he didn't release it immediately and deliberately rushed to confuse me. Before Obsidian finished scolding, a dazzling white light flashed beside him. Damn it! Obsidian just remembered that he had just thrown in a Hyojin, and the dust release outside that could perform blood inheritance elimination, then the one inside was undoubtedly just a doppelganger. No, it was a doppelganger that could self-destruct. Boom! In an instant, a huge explosion swallowed Obsidian, who had just hidden in the Kamui space. Chapter 652. With a flash of white fluorescence, the huge emerald blue Susanoo immediately shattered into pieces of debris and scattered in all directions. The scene in front of them made the group of my black ops dumbfounded. The awe-inspiring and invincible Susanoo was so easily defeated. For a time, a strong suspicion surged in their hearts, making them feel incredulous. At this time, a knowledgeable assassin asked his companions around him, "Hey, that should be dust release, right?" Regarding this question, the other Umbu members present also found it difficult to answer, because the fluorescent light just disappeared too fast, almost as soon as it appeared, and the shape was extremely irregular. It was obviously different from the dust release used by the 3 generations Tsuchika Jinoki, so even the Umbu who had seen dust release before were not sure at this moment whether it was really dust release or not. Kurenai analyzed. It should be, other ninjutsu would not be able to break Susanoo so easily. With the increasing number of cases of Susanoo in the shinobi world, everyone has a general understanding of the Susanoo used by the Manjikyu Sharingan. That is ordinary ninjutsu, even the ninjutsu launched by Kekkei Limit, which is at the same level as the Sharingan, is extremely difficult to break through the defense of Susanoo. In theory, only Kekkei Elimination, which is above Kekkei Limit, can destroy Susanoo in an instant. Realizing that this new member of Amatsukami in front of them is likely to be the only ninja in the shinobi world who has mastered the Kekkei Genkai, and is on the same level as the famous members of Amatsukami such as Homasubi, and Kaze Chime, all the Umbu members of Amatsukami felt a chill in their hearts and sighed, as expected of Amatsukami. Swish, a kunai flew past, and Kakashi caught it and flashed to Hyojin's side. The place where the huge Susanoo used to be was now empty. Looking at the debris of the Susanoo gradually drifting and annihilating in the air, Kakashi asked with a complex expression, "Did you kill him?" Hyojin gasped and shook his head. "I don't know. What happened to Obsidian now?" Hyojin really didn't know. When he just released the dust release chakra, he vaguely saw Obsidian using the Goku technique, so he detonated the clay clone in the Goku space. Therefore, if Obsidian stayed in the shinobi world, he would be drowned by the chakra, and if he hid in the Goku space, he would be devoured by the clay clone. In short, Obsidian is definitely not feeling well at this moment. Of course, Hyojin is also not feeling well at this moment. He has just touched the threshold of dust release, and there is still a long way to go before he can use dust release in actual combat, so the attack just now was completely forced to take a risk. The timing of his release of dust release seemed to be very good, catching Obsidian off guard, but in fact, it was not his intention, because at that time he had lost control of the dust release chakra in his body, and he was faced with the choice of either releasing the dust release chakra out of his body, or reaping what he sowed and letting the dust release chakra explode in his body. Hyojin naturally chose the former, and released the dust release chakra out of his body. But because he doesn't have the ability to shape this dust release chakra, so he is not sure what form this dust release chakra will take, and in which direction it will be released, so he can only resign himself to fate and gamble on his luck. Although the result was not bad, because he was worried that the power of the fusion of earth, fire, and wind chakra wouldn't be enough to break through Obsidian's Susanoo, so he blindly increased the proportion of fire and wind chakra, resulting in the fusion of dust release chakra, but its nature is extremely unstable. Although he released the unstable, dust release chakra out of his body in time, but in the process it inevitably injured some of the meridians in his body, causing the earth release clone body number 2 to suffer damage that can't be seen on the surface. At this time, hidden in his sleeves, his faintly trembling hands are the best proof. But Hyojin didn't show his injuries in front of everyone, but quietly said to the Mayumbu, "Take this opportunity to retreat." Glancing at the seriously injured people on the clay bird not far away, Kakashi nodded. He also knows that now is not the time to be entangled with the Akatsuki members. Hyojin no longer said anything, endured the pain, took out the last clay bird that he carried with him from the ninja bag on his waist, and gently threw it into the air. Bang! In a burst of white smoke, the clay bird that was originally only the size of a palm immediately expanded into a big bird with a wingspan of several meters. With a light leap, Hyojin jumped on the back of the clay bird, then pointed to the clay bird that carried Gale and the other my members not far away, and said to Kakashi and the others, "I'll lend that clay bird to you for the time being, don't stay here for too long, they might come back at any time." After saying that, Hyojin immediately urged the clay bird under his feet to quickly fly into the air. Kakashi quickly asked, "Hey, what should we call you?" Standing on the clay bird, Hyojin did not turn around, but just answered casually, "Amatsukumi's Xidagarba." Xidagarba, including Kakashi, all the Konoha Umbu members silently chewed on this codename. It seems like they want to remember this codename in their hearts. They want to remember this codename of Amatsukumi, Xidagarba, who played with 3 members of Akatsuki in the palm of his hand. In the Kingdom of Long, the originally lush mountain had been completely shattered at this time. The collapsed mountain rocks were scattered all over the ground in a disorderly manner, causing the entire landscape to change beyond recognition. Everywhere in sight were deep pits of different sizes and crisscrossing ravines, coupled with the raging mountain fire and rolling smoke. Everything in front of them was just like hell. In this hellish battlefield, Danzo stood on a broken rock, controlling his dark red Susanoo to tear the Azura path in Susanoo's hand in half, then threw it aside like throwing garbage. At this time, Danzo looked disdainfully at Tendo and Conan in the air, and with a ferocious expression, he said, "Who's the ant?" Chapter 653. In the Air. Little Nan looked at the mortal Tao, animal Tao, hell Tao, hungry ghost Tao, and the remains of the Azura Tao that had just been torn apart on the battlefield. His face was so gloomy that it seemed like it was about to drip water. No one would have thought that Danzo, who was rumored to have a serious soul injury and was seriously injured, would have such a powerful combat power. Not only can he use the 5 practical Kekkei Genkai, such as Hell Release, Rapid Release, Boiling Release, crystal release, and mist release at will, but he can also use the Manjikyu Sharingan's Susanoo, as well as the incredibly powerful wood release. In the previous battle, the earth-exploding heavenly star cast by Tendo was forcibly broken by Danzo's red Susanoo combined with wood release. One must know that although the earth-exploding tensei performed by Nagato through Tendo is far less powerful than the earth-exploding tensei performed by his true body, but it is still not something that can be easily broken by anyone. But Danzo, with Susanoo and wood release, broke the seal of the earth-exploding tensei with almost no effort and got out of the earth-exploding tensei. As for the powerful spiritual beasts that were controlled by the black rod, they became pets that could be trampled upon by others under the effects of wood escape. They were of no use at all. Unlike Konan, Tendo still had the same indifferent look on his face. The strength shown by Danzo is indeed far beyond Nagato's previous expectations, but even so, it is not enough to move him, because in the entire shinobi world, there is only one strong enemy that can pull his heartstrings, and that is the leader of Amatsukami, Yama. After a while, Tendo said lightly, "Your eyes don't seem to be ordinary Manjikyu Sharingan." Although Nagato doesn't know much about the Sharingan, but as a pupillar-type ninja, he can still faintly feel that the Sharingan in the Danzo's eye sockets is different from the others. Moreover, the Danzo's dark red Susanoo was obviously different from the other Susanoo that Nagato had seen. Even Nagato had to admit that the Danzo's Susanoo had refreshed his understanding of the strength of the Susanoo. Danzo chuckled. "Isn't it too late to realize now?" Roar. As soon as Danzo finished, his dark red Susanoo roared at Tendo and Konan in a threatening manner. Konan immediately scolded. "Danzo, do you think you can escape from our Akatsuki? You're dead." Danzo grinned. "There are a lot of people who want to kill this old man, but this old man is still alive and well." Tendo's indifferent face flashed a trace of anger. Danzo's words reminded him of Yahiko's death. Hanzo's short-sightedness and this old man's mistake for not being able to kill you two in the Rain Country. After saying that, Danzo's expression suddenly became fanatical, and he laughed hysterically. "Ha ha ha, but just you wait, it won't be long before this old man will personally correct this mistake." Listening to Danzo's arrogant declaration, Konan's eyebrows furrowed. After the fight, she understood that all the rumors about Danzo are false, and Danzo deliberately created such rumors and leaked his whereabouts, seemingly to lure someone into a trap. Tendo's curiosity was piqued by Shimura Danzo, and he asked, "What exactly did you experience? Why do you have Hiriko's Kekkei Genkai fusion technique? Who helped you do it? Do you want to know?" Pausing for a moment, Danzo grinned and said, "When this old man has the same eyes as you, this old man will personally tell you before twisting your neck." After saying that, Danzo's figure flashed, and together with his dark red Susanoo disappeared. "Don't go." Konan saw this and wanted to chase after him. At this time, Tendo stopped Konan. "Don't chase after him." But Konan looked at Tendo, her face was full of worry. Before Danzo left, he said, "When this old man has the same eyes as you," which made her particularly concerned, because Danzo's words clearly indicated that Danzo is seeking the same Rinnegan as Nagato. Thinking about Danzo deliberately spreading false information in the shinobi world, as well as his strange behavior of deliberately leaking his whereabouts, Konan became even more worried. Tendo shook his head and said in a flat tone, "I underestimated him. Now we can't do anything to him. Even if we catch up with him, it won't be of any use." Because of the enhancement of his physique after the transplantation of the Hashirama cells, Nagato's pupil power has also skyrocketed. This allows him to truly control the 6 paths of pain from a long distance, so this time his true body didn't hide somewhere nearby like before, but far away in the Akatsuki organization's base in the Land of Iron. Because of this, his true body won't be able to catch up for a while. Konan said, "The trap laid by Danzo this time is obviously to plot against someone. I think this matter is not as simple as it seems." Tendo gently nodded. "Well, The pair of Sharingan in Danzo's eye sockets is not an ordinary Manjikyu Sharingan. I can feel the power of a Mura Jinjutsu. What? Conan was taken aback. Seeing the worried expression on Conan's face, Tendo said, "Don't worry, he won't be able to escape from our hands. I'm already on my way here." On the Danzo side. After escaping from the battlefield, Danzo didn't stop to rest. He put away the Susanoo and used the swift release to quickly get away from the land of Long. In the battle just now, although he destroyed 5 of the 6 paths of pain in a row, he also consumed a lot of chakra and pupil power when breaking free from the Tendo's earth-exploding tensei. He deliberately leaked the location of the land of Long. If the Akatsuki organization can find this place, then the other shinobi villages and Amatsukami can also find this place, so he must get away from this place as soon as possible, lest he runs into the people of Amatsukami before his chakra and pupil power completely recover. Whoosh! 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 At this time, several figures appeared in front of Danzo, all of them wearing the forehead protector of the Kusanagakure village, and there are hundreds of them, completely a ninja army configuration. Seeing Danzo's appearance, panting heavily, obviously having just experienced a battle, the leader of the Kusanagakure village laughed and said, "Danzo, hand over the Manjikyu Sharingan, and I can consider sparing your life." Chapter 654. Hohu. The whistling sound of the wind constantly echoed in Hyojin's ears, and even though he was high in the sky, he still maintained a high level of vigilance, and the Byakugan in his eye sockets searched for all suspicious targets around him. Until he reached the sea, Hyojin was a little relieved. Looking down at his hands, he curled his lips and said, "The injuries are not light." Previously, he rashly used the dust release, which he was not proficient in, causing serious damage to the meridians of his hands. At this moment, let alone performing any ninjutsu, even raising his hands was extremely difficult. In addition, the clay doppelgangers that he carried with him had been used up in the previous battle, and the only clay bird that could move was the one that carried him. Therefore, even if his hands were intact, his combat strength would still be greatly reduced. After all, a ninja like him who relied on the explosion release of the explosive clay is the most important. But if he wants to be strange, he must have enough explosive clay for him to squander. Therefore, when all kinds of clay products are available, the combat power of a ninja like him will often be unexpectedly strong. It is not uncommon for one person to fight against 100, or even to destroy a village. In the original story, Dedail broke into the Sand Crypsis alone and captured the 5th Kazekage alive in front of everyone's eyes. But once the clay products on his body are exhausted, then he will be like a tiger falling to the plains. Compared to Dedail, Hyojin is inferior in a protracted battle. Because Dedail can quickly shape the explosive clay on the spot, he only needs to carry enough explosive clay and make whatever he needs on the spot. But Hyojin doesn't have the ability to quickly shape the explosive clay, so he can only carry clay products that have been shaped in advance. But in this way there will be an awkward situation like he is now. Clay centipedes, clay spiders, and the like still had a bunch of them that hadn't been used. However, the clay clones and clay birds had been used up in the battle, causing them to lack life-saving and mobility method. This was a clear shortcoming, causing their overall combat strength to plummet. Not long after, the fortress hidden in the clouds finally appeared in Hyojin's field of vision. After safely returning to the fortress, Hyojin immediately went to the laboratory and put the second Earth release clone into the large nutrition tank to repair it. This time, he actually didn't prepare to fight at all. When he received the news, he found that one of the Danzo's hiding places was near the deserted island where he practiced the dust release, so he came to take a look. Although the second Earth release clone has not been fully developed and isn't very reliable in combat, it is blessed in scouting. There are clay birds in the sky, clay spiders in the ground, and clay centipedes in the ground. Coupled with the Byakugan in its eye sockets, it is just right to confirm the Danzo's whereabouts, so he didn't return to the fortress to swap clones. He didn't expect that before he could find the Danzo, he would run into Red, Xian, and Gale in danger. He had no choice but to act hastily, so he didn't make sufficient preparations in all aspects. But the result wasn't too bad. At least he saved some of his subordinates and confirmed that the Akatsuki has joined the hunt for the Danzo, Long Country. Soon, Nagato led Shinichi, Bipa Juzo, Ghost Mermaid, Lotus, Sasori, and other members of the Akatsuki to the battlefield and met up with Conan, who stayed on the battlefield to collect information. Because the Land of Iron and the Land of Long are neighbors of the Akatsuki, Nagato's action was very fast. The reason why he brought so many members of the Akatsuki was not because he was afraid of the Danzo, but because he felt that the more manpower he had, the higher the efficiency of the hunt for the Danzo would be. As for the Danzo, although the strength of the Akatsuki has surpassed the Kage level and belongs to the top of the shinobi world, but Nagato still didn't put him in his eyes. In front of his true body, his evaluation of the Danzo is still that of an ant. After meeting up with Conan, the Akatsuki started to chase after the Danzo. Because Conan's paper butterfly has been following the Danzo from a distance, the Akatsuki quickly followed the Danzo's retreat route and arrived at the place where the Danzo encountered the Kusanagi ninjas. But at this moment the place was completely silent. Broken limbs and dismembered corpses were everywhere, and the blood on the ground was pooling together, forming a stream, and the air was filled with a pungent smell of blood. And the most horrifying thing is that many of the Kusanagi ninjas were pierced through by the wood release and were hanging in the air in rows, looking extremely horrifying. Looking at this hellish scene, even the members of the Akatsuki who are used to seeing life and death couldn't help but frown. There is no doubt that a battle took place here not long ago, and the two sides should be the Danzo and the Kusanagi ninjas. As for the result, the corpses of the Kusanagi ninjas are enough to explain everything. Shinichi muttered with a dark face, "Could it be that Danzo did all of this alone? I know that he is a bad guy, but I didn't expect that he is not only bad, but also crazy." If the Akatsuki's target was other people, then Shinichi may not have come, but this time their target was Danzo, so he volunteered to join the hunt. But he didn't expect that Danzo's bloodthirst would be so heavy that he actually slaughtered hundreds of Kusanagi ninjas, which made him feel slightly nauseous. Bipa Juzo observed the surroundings and said in confusion, "Danzo is much more ruthless than us. He could have easily broken out of the encirclement, so why did he waste his chakra on these people?" Berserk Lotus from the Kagaya clan said with disdain, "What's the use of bullying Kusanagi ninjas?" At this time, Conan brought a Kusanagi ninja to his side, checked the other's breath, and immediately got up and said to Nagato, "Nagato, there is still one alive here." Nagato's figure flashed and came to the side of the dying Kusanagi ninja, pressed one hand on the other's forehead, extracted the other's soul, and browsed the memory of the battle just now, country of Tian. Danzo, who was covered in blood, flew through the forest, and his body was filled with a terrifying aura. After slaughtering hundreds of Kusanagi ninjas, he did not stop at all. He went all the way east through the country of Iron and came to the country of Tian. At this time, a figure flashing with blue lightning slammed into Danzo, forcing him to stop. Swish, swish, swish. Then, one figure after another fell around, surrounding Danzo. The figure flashing with lightning is naturally Lei Ying of the 4 generations of Cloud Village. After he forced Danzo to stop, he looked at Danzo covered in blood and asked, "Are you Danzo now? Or Hamui?" Chapter 655. Boom! The dark red Susanoo fiercely collided with the dazzling lightning, making a deafening roar. Immediately afterward, the shock wave surged out in all directions, and several thick trees that several people couldn't even wrap their arms around were instantly blown away. Along with them, a large number of cloud ninjas were also blown away. Fortunately, Hachibi's Jinchuriki was also present on the scene. he resisted the shock wave of the torrent and entered the state of half-tailed beast, using his 8 powerful tails to catch most of the cloud ninjas that were sent flying in the field. After easily swatting away the attack of 4 generations laying, Danzo grinned. His face was full of ridicule. "Is your anger only this much?" Activating the lightning release chakra mode, 4 generations laying, bathed in the dazzling lightning, gasped while glaring at Danzo. "You damn bastard." Danzo smiled casually. It turns out that the lament of a defeated dog is so pleasant to the ear. Danzo, who defeated the army of the 6 Paths of Pain and the Grass Ninja Village, and made the leader of the Akatsuki organization helpless, is no longer interested in acting like a schizophrenic in front of the Cloud Ninjas, so in the face of the previous question of 4 generations laying, his answer was the roar of Susanoo. Now Danzo finally experienced how powerful he is. This infinite power made him addicted to it, unable to extricate himself. This is the reason why he couldn't control his surging killing intent and slaughtered hundreds of grass ninjas, even though he could save chakra and forcibly break through the encirclement of the grass ninjas. "Danzo, you really pissed me off this time." Pausing for a moment, 4 generations laying roared, "How can I allow a scoundrel like you to challenge Lei Ying's honor?" After saying that, 4 generations laying activated the lightning escape chakra mode to its limit. The lightning escape chakra mode on his body instantly expanded. At the same time, all the muscles on his body expanded, and his hair stood up like a hedgehog. Without a doubt, 4 generations Lei Ying's killing intent had been completely aroused. Boom! In a flash of lightning that could not be seen clearly, 4 generations Lei Ying, who was in the extreme lightning escape chakra mode, punched the dark red Susanoo of the Danzo. Crack! A crack appeared on the sturdy outer armor of the Susanoo. Danzo, who was inside the Susanoo, was a little taken aback by this. Boom! But before the Danzo could activate the Susanoo to launch a counterattack, 4 generations Lei Ying's figure suddenly disappeared, and then immediately flashed behind the Susanoo, launching another fierce attack. As soon as the Danzo turned around, 4 generations Lei Ying's figure disappeared again. Boom! Then, another roar echoed in the ears of the Danzo. And in this sound of heavy attacks, 4 generations Lei Ying, who had raised his speed to the limit, launched a round of fierce attacks around the huge Susanoo as if he could teleport. Through this continuous fierce attack, he was looking for the flaws of the Susanoo. From the side it looked like a lightning was constantly lingering around the Susanoo, and every time the lightning flashed, there would be a conspicuous crack on the Susanoo. The face of the Danzo, who was under fierce attack, was slightly gloomy at this moment, but his pair of eternal Manjikyu Sharingan eyes were still shining with a strange brilliance, with a relaxed and playful look. Suddenly, 4 generations Lei Ying found a flaw under the ribs of the Susanoo, and immediately shouted without hesitation, "Thunder Abuse Water Level Chio Dance." 4 generations Lei Ying's full strength slashed the ribs of the Susanoo, causing the huge Susanoo to stagger. Kacha kacha! In an instant, a large area under the ribs of the Susanoo shattered. Whoosh! At this moment, with a whistling sound, the 8 tails Jinchuriki in the distance quietly entered the tailed beast state and shot out a Bijou Bijutsu that had been brewing for a long time, hitting the ribs of Shimura Danzo Susanoo accurately. Boom! 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 After being hit by this tailed beast Jade, the Susanoo, whose body was already full of cracks, could no longer support it and exploded in a huge explosion. Whoosh! Without waiting for the smoke to disperse, a Cloud Jonin holding a chakra sword launched the body flicker technique and attacked the Danzo, who had lost the protection of the Susanoo. Without the slightest hesitation, the chakra sword in the hand of the Cloud Jonin fiercely slashed toward the Danzo. Did it work? Beautiful! Quickly cut him down. Seeing this scene, the surrounding Cloud Ninjas immediately applauded. However, just as the chakra sword was about to cut the head of the Danzo, less than a centimeter away from the tip of the Danzo's nose, the chakra sword suddenly stopped. The Cloud Ninjas were taken aback, and when they looked carefully, they saw that the Cloud Jonin holding the sword had blue veins bulging on his arms, and his face was also gritting his teeth, as if he had used all his strength, but the sword in his hand was unable to cut down, as if there was an invisible barrier separating him from the Danzo. At this time, the Danzo retracted the genjutsu and stretched out his right hand. In an instant, countless wildly growing trees swarmed out from his right hand, and fiercely pierced through the Kumo Jonin, who was under the control of the genjutsu and was unable to cut down the sword in his hand. The impact sent the Jonin flying away like a piece of rag. With a smile, the Danzo's eyes narrowed, and a new dark red Susanoo appeared in front of everyone, and the moment it appeared, the Susanoo grabbed the yondaime Laying who had just used his full strength. "Big brother!" Not far away, the Hachibi's Jinchuriki exclaimed. Whoosh! At this time, countless trees rose from the ground, firmly imprisoning the tailed beast in place. Standing in the middle of the Susanoo, the Danzo glanced at the yondaime Laying who was held in the Susanoo's hand, and then looked at the Hachibi's Jinchuriki who was trapped by his own wood release, and said with a smile, "The era of the 5 great shinobi villages will end in this old man's hands. The era of the gods has arrived, and this old man is the god of the shinobi world. How can Danzo be so strong?" Seeing the yondaime Laying and the Hachibi's Jinchuriki, who stood at the peak of the shinobi world, being easily defeated by the Danzo, the Cloud Ninjas were stunned, and their faces were full of disbelief. They never thought that their own AB and AB combination would be defeated in the hands of the Danzo. Just when the Cloud Ninjas thought that a disaster was coming, a paper butterfly leisurely flew to the battlefield. Chapter 656. Cough, cough. After being thrown out by Danzo's Susanoo, 4 generations Laying fell heavily to the ground, coughing violently while gasping for breath. Regarding the sudden departure of Danzo, 4 generations Laying was full of doubts, but he also felt afraid. If all the elite Cloud troops he led were killed here, the blow to Cloud Village would be immeasurable, and Cloud Village, one of the 5 great shinobi villages, may even fall into decline. Whoosh! At this time, a group of Cloud Ninjas immediately surrounded him. "Laying, Sama, are you okay?" 4 generations Laying did not answer the concerned questions of his subordinates, but pushed aside the several Cloud Ninjas blocking his view and locked his eyes on the paper butterfly fluttering in the battlefield. "Big brother, are you okay? Why do you look like a fool?" Hachibi's Jinchuriki also rushed over at this time and asked while humming a rap song. Listening to Hachibi's rap song, 4 generations Laying punched Hachibi, and then ordered all the Cloud Ninjas, "Take the wounded, we will retreat immediately." Hachibi followed the gaze of 4 generations Laying and glanced at the paper butterfly that was gradually flying away and asked, "What's wrong?" 4 generations Laying said with a solemn expression, "Danzo left so decisively, it means that someone is chasing him, and the strength of the other party must be very strong, stronger than us." Hachibi is also a smart person and immediately responded, "So, Danzo didn't kill us just now because he wanted us to help him resist the pursuers and buy time for him to escape?" 4 generations Laying nodded with a gloomy face. "Because he really can't think of any other reason that would make Danzo let them go so decisively, and the only thing that can make Danzo feel fear is either Amatsukami or Akatsuki. Amatsukami and the 5 great shinobi villages now have a preliminary cooperation relationship, so even if they meet, the 2 sides may not necessarily fight, so the one who is chasing Danzo is most likely a member of Akatsuki." After realizing the seriousness of the problem, a group of Cloud Ninjas quickly cleaned the battlefield, and then quickly evacuated with all the wounded and dead. On the way back to the Land of Lightning, Hachibi said with lingering fear, "This time was really too thrilling. I didn't expect that Danzo not only has a pair of Sharingan that can use Susanoo, but also such a powerful wood release. Even if I used the power of the Hachibi, I still couldn't break free from the shackles of his wood release. It's simply too scary." Because of the use of wood release, Hachibi as a Jinchuriki can't use his full strength when facing Danzo, which makes him very afraid of Danzo. 4 generations Liang, who has always been reckless, said with a rare self-reflection. I was too careless, and almost caused Cloud Village to fall into eternal damnation. Hachibi asked, What should we do now? After suppressing the unwillingness and anger in his heart, 4 generations Liang said with a slightly dejected expression. That madman Danzo is no longer someone that our Cloud Village can deal with. We can only convene the Kage Assembly and gather the strength of the 5 great shinobi villages to deal with him together. After this battle, 4 generations Liang, who is extremely confident in his own strength, also realized the strength of Danzo, and knows that only by gathering the power of the 5 Kage can they deal with Danzo. In the land of hot water. After passing through the land of Tian, Danzo still went all the way east and came to the land of hot water near the sea. In an open area, the galloping Danzo suddenly stopped and said, Come out! At this time, Orochimaru walked out leisurely from behind a big tree not far away. Tsk, Danzo, it seems that your current situation is not very good. Just from the appearance alone, Danzo's body is covered with blood at the moment. His robe is also torn, and even his breathing is a little disordered, completely in a panic, completely in line with the rumors that his soul has gone wrong and he is seriously injured. Danzo snorted coldly. Orochimaru, do you also want this old man's Sharingan? Orochimaru looked up and down at Danzo, stuck out his tongue and licked his lips, and said with a greedy look on his face, This body of yours is all made by me, isn't it natural to return it to me? Looking at the greed in Orochimaru's eyes, Danzo suddenly laughed. Before you, do you know who has stopped this old man? Orochimaru said, I'm not interested in who those idiots are, but I do want to thank them for helping me consume so much of your chakra, saving me a lot of trouble. At this time, the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in Danzo's eyes suddenly rotated. How, almost at the moment when Danzo launched the power of the eyes, Orochimaru was surprised to find that he could not move. Danzo walked in front of Orochimaru with a gloomy face and said, Orochimaru, how dare you appear in front of this old man like this? The real stupid one is actually you. Orochimaru's expression was stiff. It seemed that he still didn't believe that Danzo could easily subdue him with just a look. Speaking of this old man, I really want to thank you. If it weren't for your tricks in the ritual, this old man would not have the power I have now. After a pause, Danzo continued, You are obviously a very good chess piece, what a pity. After saying that, Danzo launched the Susanoo. Soon, the dark-red Susanoo grabbed Orochimaru, who was trapped in the genjutsu and couldn't move, and the blood mist that permeated around Susanoo also enveloped Orochimaru's body. The body of Orochimaru, who was enveloped by the blood mist, immediately melted. The great pain made him as one of the Sannin couldn't help but cry out loud. Listening to Orochimaru's painful wails, Danzo seemed to be enjoying a beautiful piece of music, closing his eyes and enjoying it with a ferocious and satisfied expression on his face. After a while, Orochimaru completely melted in the hands of Danzo's Susanoo. At this time, Danzo turned his head to the east. He went all the way east, through the land of iron, the land of field, and the land of hot water. His purpose was to go to the land of water across the sea. He is in urgent need of a safe foothold, and the lonely Mist Village is obviously a good target. First, the Mist Village was once controlled by Akatsuki, so the Mist Village is certainly not the territory of Amatsukami. Otherwise, the Akatsuki that controls the Mist Village would have already discovered it, and they wouldn't be looking for Amatsukami all over the shinobi world. Second, the Mist Village hates the Akatsuki that played with them, so the Mist Village is one of the best places to hide from the Akatsuki. Third, the Mist Village is isolated in the sea, and the news is relatively backward, so they shouldn't know about his killing along the way, so as long as he pretends that there is a problem with his soul, and the boiling release ninja in his body takes control of his body, he will have a great chance to get close to the 4 generations Mizukage, and use the genjutsu to control the 4 generations Mizukage. Just like the Akatsuki before, he can secretly turn the Mist Village into his own territory. Chapter 657. Danzo activated the swift release and walked on the waves of the vast sea. His speed was extremely fast, and in less than half a day, he easily crossed the land of whirlpools located in the southeast of the land of hot water and completely entered the boundless sea. At this time, he has gotten rid of all the pursuers. Even the paper butterfly that has been following him from a distance was cleverly thrown off by him in the land of hot water. Not only that, but with his rich experience, he also divided 2 shadow clones. One went north into the land of the moon, and the other went south into the land of fire, one in the light and one in the dark. He forged his tracks to confuse the pursuers. Even with so many means arranged, he didn't slow down in the slightest when crossing the sea. He still maintained the swift release at full speed without any regard for the consumption of chakra. Looking down from the sky, he looked like an invisible longsword slashing at the surface of the sea, leaving behind a thin line of water on the surface of the sea, leaving behind a thin wave. The reason for this is because time is the key to everything. Danzo must hurry up and get in touch with the 4 generations Mizuki Jigura before the news of his killing spread to the Mist Village. He must use the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan to control the Mist Village's 4 generations Mizuki Jigura, making the Mist Village the only isolated and relatively isolated village out of the 5 great shinobi villages is his temporary shelter. One must know that in the previous battles, although he defeated the 6 Paths of Pain of the Akatsuki organization, the hundreds of shinobi of the Kusanagakure village, the AB combination of Kumo and Orochimaru, but his own consumption is not small, especially when facing the 6 Paths of Pain. He used all his means to deal with the other 5 paths except for the Tendo, so he currently needs a safe hiding place to recover. In addition, the efficiency of collecting information is too low for him to be alone, so he also needs a channel to collect information about Amatsukami, and the Mist Village, one of the 5 great shinobi villages, is obviously the best choice. As long as he can secretly control the 4 generations Mizukage, then all the shinobi of the Mist Village will become his eyes and ears to gather information for him. As for whether or not he could control the 4 generations Mizukage with the perfect Jinchuriki, Danzo wasn't worried at all. Through the previous fight with Orochimaru, or, to be more precise, through the fight with Orochimaru, Danzo has deeply realized how powerful the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in his eye sockets is, coupled with his wood release. The Jinchuriki is nothing but a toy in his eyes. After a long time, an archipelago appeared before the Danzo's eyes. Seeing the archipelago means that they are about to reach the land of water, which is separated from the shinobi continent by the sea, so the Danzo immediately slowed down and quietly passed the small islands guarded by the mist ninjas. He can't reveal his whereabouts yet, because no one can guarantee that there are no spies from other forces among the mist ninjas guarding the island, so he can't stay here any longer. He has to go directly to the Mist Village and directly contact the Mist Village's higher-up. And the excuse to contact the Mist Village's higher-ups is also ready-made. Among the 5 Kekai Genkai that Danzo fused with, one of them is a boil-release Kekai Genkai from the Mist Village. In order to secretly control the Mist Village, Danzo has already begun to make arrangements. He deliberately announced that something went wrong during the ritual, that there are major hidden dangers in his soul, and that his body may be controlled by other souls at any time. After a month or 2 of fermentation, Danzo believes that the Mist Village must have already heard of this rumor. Therefore, he only needs to pretend that the will of the boil-release Kekai Genkai is controlling his body, and there is a great chance that he can meet the 4 generations Mizukage. Of this, Danzo is confident. He is sure that no village can resist the temptation of a pair of Manjikyu Sharingan, especially this kind of Manjikyu Sharingan that is almost at his fingertips. Not long after, with the help of the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, Danzo successfully avoided the Mist Village's patrols and sneaked all the way to the Mist Village. When he reached the Mizukage building, he closed the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in his eye sockets and revealed himself. "Who is it?" The sudden appearance of Shimura Danzo surprised a group of mist ninjas guarding the Mizukage building. No one thought that someone could sneak in here without a sound. Danzo covered his chest and pretended to be injured while shouting hoarsely, "It's me, I'm Kiko Susumu. I have important news to report to Mizukage-sama. Quick, take me to Mizukage-sama." In the land of long whoosh, 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 with a burst of wind, several figures landed on the battlefield where Danzo and 6 Paths of Pain were fighting. "Hey, I remember there should be a mountain here, right?" "Yeah, I also remember that there was a mountain here. Could it be that the entire mountain collapsed? What happened here? Who did it?" Looking at the unrecognizable scene in front of them, the ninjas wearing the rock protector looked at each other in dismay. Their faces were filled with disbelief. At this time, the captain of the scouting team ordered, "Don't just stare blankly, immediately check the battlefield and collect information. I have a hunch that something big is going to happen in the shinobi world. We must report the situation here to the village as soon as possible." "Yes." After the several rock ninjas responded, they immediately dispersed to various parts of the battlefield and carefully inspected the battlefield. The same thing happened on the battlefield where Danzo and Kusanagakure shinobi fought, as well as on the battlefield where Danzo and Kumo's AB fought. All kinds of ninjas were traveling back and forth on these battlefields, collecting and delivering all kinds of information. Among them were the elite Umbu, who were responsible for collecting information from the 5 great ninja villages, as well as the scouting ninjas from Kusanagakure, Takanobi, and other small and large mercenary organizations, as well as various intelligence dealers in the black market. In this short day, on every battlefield in the Land of Long, the Land of Iron, the Land of Field, and the Land of Hot Water, there were several groups of ninjas busily collecting information at every moment. Coincidentally, there were even 2 or 3 villages' reconnaissance teams bumping into each other, but everyone had a tacit understanding and just collected their own information, and they lived in harmony with each other. And with the work of these investigative ninjas belonging to various shinobi villages and organizations, the results of Danzo's trip to the east were also pieced together. Looking at this terrible record, no matter which side the scouting ninjas were aware of the seriousness of the problem. Therefore, the news of Shimura Danzo's massacre of the Akatsuki, Kusanagi, and Kumo spread like wildfire in the shinobi world. Chapter 658. Mist Village, inside the Mizukage building. Drip, drip, Shimura Danzo, who was following behind the 2 Umbu members of the Mist Village, was constantly dripping with blood. As he walked, his blood flowed along with him. At this time, one of the Umbu members looked back at Danzo and saw that Danzo's wounds were open, and his body was covered in blood. The Umbu member of the Mist Village felt a little less vigilant and asked casually, "Do you need me to bandage you first?" Danzo shook his head and said weakly, "Don't delay, I don't know how long I can hold on. If Danzo recovers, things will become troublesome. It's more important to see Mizukage-sama first." "Alright." The Umbu member of the Mist Village didn't say anything else. It didn't take long for them to come to the underground palace under the Mizukage building. After taking Danzo to a secret room, the Umbu member of the Mist Village said, "You stay here, we have already sent someone to report to Mizukage-sama. I think Mizukage-sama will come to see you soon." Danzo nodded silently. Next to the secret room where Danzo was located, Mei Aojirai and the 6-tailed Jinchuriki of the Mist Village were observing Danzo through a special one-way glass. Mei frowned and asked, "Do you think he is that Susumu Kiko?" Natsutsuki Kiko is the name of the boiling release Kekii Genkai of the Mist Village that was fused with Shimura Danzo in the ritual. However, because Natsutsuki Kiko is very rebellious and has very little contact with the village, Coupled with the frequent rebellions in the Mist Village in recent years, the internal management of the village is in chaos, so there is no detailed file on Natsutsuki Kiko in the village. The Umbu members of the Mist Village were not familiar with Susumu Kiko. Even Mei, who also has the boiling release, had only seen Susumu Kiko before, so they didn't have any friendship with him. If this happened in other villages, it might be a little strange. However, in the Hidden Fog Village, which had the title of Blood Mist Village, it was normal. In fact, even now, there are still many solitary ninjas in the Mist Village. They rarely have any contact with the village, and some of them have even remained in a state of being uncontactable for a long time. Of course, it was also because of this that the Danzo's route targeted Susumu Kiko, because this kind of lone target was the easiest to strike. Ching said, "There are indeed related rumors outside. Danzo's soul seemed to have a problem during the ritual. The souls that were integrated into his body would compete with each other for control of the body." Mei Ming shook her head. "Even so, I still feel that something is wrong. He sneaked into the village at this time and threatened to meet 4 generations. It's too suspicious." One of the Mist elites on the side chuckled and said, "This guy is already injured to this extent, what's there to worry about? Even if the soul controlling his body is Danzo, the one who should be worried should be him. Humph, this is the Hidden Fog Village, where does he think it is? Since he's here, we have the final say." Mei glanced at Qing and asked, "Are the injuries on his body real?" Qing nodded. "I have checked with the Byakugan before. The wounds on his body are real, and the one on his chest is a penetrating wound. It's very serious." Mei pondered for a moment. "I remember that the injuries on his body should be from the encounter with the Myumbu, right? Penetrating wound. This reminds me of a ninjutsu." Speaking of this, Mei and Qing looked at each other, and then both of them said in unison, "Chidori." Yu Gao, who had been silent all this time, suddenly said, "Don't forget, he has a pair of Manjikyu Sharingan." Listening to Yu Gao's words, all the leaders of the Mist Village frowned. Because the Mizukage of 4 generations was controlled by the Manjikyu Sharingan, the Mist Village was extremely afraid of the Manjikyu Sharingan. So even if Danzo was injured, as long as he had a pair of Manjikyu Sharingan in his eye sockets, the Mist Village had to be careful. Suddenly, an Umbu member of the Mist Village came to the room and said to the leaders of the Mist Village, "Mizukage-sama already knows." Mei Ming asked, "What does 4 generations want to do with him?" The Umbu member quickly replied, "Mizukage-sama decided to meet him in person and listen to his secret." "What?" Mei Ming was stunned for a moment and then immediately wondered, "Why does 4 generations want to meet him in person? Isn't this too risky? Let us interrogate him, we can also pry open his mouth." Aojirai narrowed her eyes and asked, "4 generations wants to meet him alone?" The Umbu member nodded, "Yes." Aojirai then asked, "Is he going to meet him here?" The Umbu member shook his head and said, "Mizukage-sama wants to meet him on To-Do Island." Soon, after disguising himself, Danzo was secretly escorted out of the Mist Village by a team of Umbu members and rushed to the To-Do Island located in the southwest of the Land of Water. On the way, Danzo asked the Umbu member who was escorting him, "Where are we going?" The Umbu member said fiercely, "Shut up, don't ask what you shouldn't ask, just follow us obediently." Danzo's face turned cold, and immediately activated the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, using Genjutsu to instantly control the 4 Umbu members who were escorting him, and asked again, "Speak, where are we going?" The Umbu leader replied with a dull expression, "We are going to To-Do Island. Mizukage-sama is waiting to meet you there." To-Do Island? After a pause, Danzo asked again, "Why does Mizukage-sama want to meet me on To-Do Island?" The Umbu leader replied, "Because Mizukage-sama is now on To-Do Island." Danzo didn't doubt him, and immediately lifted the Genjutsu. The 4 Umbu members who escorted Danzo didn't realize that they were under the Genjutsu, and silently escorted Danzo to To-Do Island. After a long time, Danzo set foot on To-Do Island. Soon, Danzo found that the entire island was heavily guarded, and he saw hundreds of mist ninjas, and there were many patrolling ships on the surrounding sea. Obviously, this is a military fortress of the Mist Village. Seeing this scene, Danzo wasn't worried, but happy. In his opinion, the more cautious the Mist Village is, the greater his chances of success will be. All the way to the center of the island, the Umbu leader pointed to a dark passage deep in the ground in front of him and said, "Mizuki-sama is inside." Danzo nodded, and then quickly stepped into the dark passage. He wasn't worried that there would be any traps here, or rather, he didn't put the Mist Village in his eyes at all. Even if the Mist Village really set up some traps here, for him, it's just a killing spree. After a moment, when Danzo reached the end of the passage, a short figure appeared in front of him. This person is the Mist Village's 4 generations Mizuki-sama Yagura. The Mist Village is mine. Looking at the 4 generations Mizuki-sama, not far away, Danzo smiled playfully. Chapter 659. Pitter-patter-patter, the rain curtain covered the whole world, and in this thick mist, the entire Mist Village was looming, making it seem unreal. Suddenly, a gray gull flew through the rain curtain like an arrow and landed on the Mizuki building. The ninja of the Mist Village quickly removed the scroll from the gull's leg and rushed to Mei, who was guarding the Mizuki building, and presented the urgent report from the shinobi continent to her. After undoing the seal on the scroll, Mei Ming took a quick glance and her expression changed drastically. She said to Qing, who was standing by the side, quickly gather the people. We must hurry to Bird Fairy Island immediately." Aojirai was puzzled. What's wrong? Mei's face was as cold as ice. I'm afraid that Danzo is playing us. That guy isn't desperate at all, he is now a complete monster. The leader of Akatsuki and the AB group of Kumo were defeated by him one after another. This time he came to the Mist Village. It's very likely that he has ideas about 4 generations. Aojirai took the report handed over by Mei and looked at it with an embarrassed expression. Damn it, we must not let him succeed. The fact that the Mizuki, the head of the village, was secretly manipulated by Akatsuki and reduced to a puppet is already a great shame for the Mist Village. If Danzo does the same thing again, then the dignity of the Mist Village will really be trampled into the mud. To-Do Island, Underground Palace. The dark environment didn't hinder Danzo's sharp eyes. He glanced at the 4 generations Mizuki standing quietly in the deepest part of the underground palace, and confirmed the identity of the other party from the 3-tailed chakra that was coming out of the other party's body. You dare to meet me alone. Should I say that you are stupid, or should I say that you are arrogant? The so-called Mizuki is this kind of trash. No wonder he became a puppet of Akatsuki. Danzo couldn't help but show a look of disdain on his face. He thought that there would be some twists and turns in the process of meeting the 4 generations Mizuki. After all, the Mist Village has suffered such a big loss, so it's impossible for the 4 generations Mizuki to not guard against the Manjikyu Sharingan. However, he had never thought that things would go so smoothly and that he would be able to meet the person in question so easily. And thinking that as long as he controls the 4 generations Mizuki in front of him, then the Kiri village, one of the 5 great shinobi villages, will fall into his hands. Danzo was in a good mood and walked over, and the black pupils in his eyes turned scarlet. 4 generations Mizuki Goji Yagura suddenly asked, "Is this the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan? Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan?" The Danzo's expression froze and he stopped in his tracks. He knows that the Sharingan in his eye sockets is extraordinary, surpassing the level of the Manjikyu Sharingan, and is only 1 step away from the Rinnegan, which is known as the Sage's Eye, but he doesn't know that the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan is also a top secret within the Uchiha clan. So this pair of eyes is called the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. With an inexhaustible pupil power, the prefix eternal is just right. After a pause, Danzo asked, What else do you know about the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan? Speak. At this moment, a voice came from the shadows of the underground palace. Yes, this is the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. It turns out that 4 generations Mizukage Goji Yagura didn't speak to Danzo from the beginning to the end. The person he just asked was the person hiding in the shadows, and after getting a reply from the other party, Yagura slightly bowed and asked, "Do you need me to stay and assist you?" At this moment, a series of footsteps could be heard in the quiet underground palace. Very soon, a figure wearing a black cloak with golden edges and a flame-patterned mask walked out from the shadows. He said calmly, "There's no need for that. You may leave." 4 generations Mizukage Goji Yagura quickly saluted the figure, and then disappeared from the dark underground palace. "Homasubi? How come you are here?" After seeing the figure walking out of the shadows, Danzo was taken aback. There is no doubt that the person who appeared in the underground palace is none other than Hyojin. He sneered and said mockingly, "The one who should be surprised is me. I really didn't expect that you would fall into my hands." Hyojin wasn't lying. When he received the message from Yagura in the air fortress, he was really surprised. He didn't expect that Danzo would fall into his hands. But now that he knows the exact whereabouts of Danzo, he naturally won't let go of this heaven-sent opportunity. Therefore, he ordered Yagura to lead Danzo to this remote island, while preparing to kill Danzo and retrieve the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. Danzo suddenly understood. So, it turns out that Amatsukami has secretly controlled the Mist Village. The appearance of Homasubi, and the respectful attitude of 4 generations Mizukage towards Homasubi, all indicate that the Mist Village has probably become a puppet of Amatsukami. Then, Danzo frowned, "But how did you do it?" This old man has already sensed that 4 generations Mizukage's chakra is normal. There is no sign of him being controlled by genjutsu at all. Hyojin lightly said, "Why would a dead man know such things?" As soon as Hyojin's voice fell, 2 figures walked out of the shadows on both sides. These 2 figures were also wearing a black cloak with golden edges and a flame-patterned mask. Three Homasubi? You? Looking at the 2 Homasubi from Amatsukami, Danzo was shocked. Like everyone else, he always thought that there were only 2 Homasubi in Amatsukami, 1 male and 1 female. He didn't expect that there was a 3rd Homasubi hidden in Amatsukami. And according to the practice of Amatsukami, those who can become Homasubi should at least have a pair of Manjikyu Sharingan. In other words, there are a total of 3 pairs of Manjikyu Sharingan in Amatsukami. This is really strange to Danzo. He even had the illusion that the Uchiha clan has already surrendered to Amatsukami. But soon, the shock on Danzo's face turned into ecstasy. He covered his eyes with his hands and laughed wildly. "Ha ha ha, great, this old man doesn't have to look for you all over the shinobi world." After saying that, the Manjikyu Sharingan in Danzo's eye sockets flashed with a strange light. Without wasting any more time, Suijin instantly activated his Manjikyu Sharingan and activated his Susanoo Manjikyu. And as Hyojin activated his Susanoo, Jishui and Itachi also activated their respective Susanoo. Good. This old man wants to see whose Susanoo is stronger. In an instant, a fierce chakra burst out of Danzo's body, followed by a dark red projection projected from his body, letting out a beast-like roar. Chapter 660. Boom, boom, boom. The 4 tall and mighty Susanoo burst out almost at the same time, instantly squeezing through the dome of the underground palace and making a huge roar. In the splashing gravel and billowing smoke, Hyojin, Jishui, and Itachi tacitly arranged themselves into a triangular formation, using their respective Susanoo to surround the dark red Susanoo of Danzo in the center. In the ruins of the underground palace, the 4 Susanoo were different from each other. Hyojin's golden flame Susanoo was holding a flaming long sword, surrounded by dazzling golden flames. From a distance it looked like a majestic god of fire. Jishui's Yagami Susanoo was emerald green, holding the fire-red artifact Yagami mirror in its left hand, calm and reserve. Itachi's Susanoo was orange, holding a fire-engulfing artifact gourd in its right hand, and its eyes were glowing with divine light, looking majestic and extraordinary. Compared to the three orthodox Susanoo of Homasubi, Danzo's demon Susanoo didn't look like a god, but more like a demon that crawled out of hell. It had sharp claws and fangs, and it was standing on all fours like a beast. Its body was a size larger than the other three Susanoo, and its whole body was filled with a terrifying blood mist that could melt rocks and plants, giving people a chilling feeling. Its killing intent and violence were completely unconcealed, almost overflowing. Boom! Suddenly, a burst of thunder sounded in the sky, followed by dark clouds and howling winds. This was the case in the country of water. The weather changed without warning. A moment ago, the sky was clear, but in the next moment, lightning flashed, thunder rumbled, and dark clouds covered the sky. As the lightning flashed and the sky gradually darkened, the atmosphere on the island became even more gloomy and oppressive, making it hard for people to breathe. Obviously, an unprecedented Susanoo war in the shinobi world is about to break out. It's a pity that when Yagura left the underground palace before, he followed Hyojin's orders and withdrew all the mist ninjas on the island and in the nearby area, so there was no audience for this rare Susanoo battle. In the field, despite being surrounded by three Susanoo, Danzo showed no signs of fear. Instead, he laughed wildly. "Fools, you think you're hunting this old man, but this old man is actually hunting you. Flame demon? Humph, from today onwards, Amatsukumi's Sanyanmo will be removed from the shinobi world, and this old man will step on your bones to reach the peak of the shinobi world." After defeating Nagato's 6 paths of pain, Kusanagakure's hundreds of shinobi, Kumo's AB and AB, as well as Orochimaru, Danzo's confidence in his own strength has reached the peak. Although he hasn't obtained the Rinnegan yet at this time, he doesn't put the 3 flame demons in front of him in his eyes. He firmly believes that he is the strongest person in the shinobi world, and that he will definitely inform the shinobi world in the future. Something's wrong. How did this guy's chakra become so terrifying? Hyojin can ignore Danzo's madness, but he can't ignore the terrifying chakra on Danzo's body. Whether it is the pupillary power displayed by the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in his eye sockets or the sharp increase in chakra around his body, Danzo's strength is far beyond that of the previous battle in the lava cave. It can even be said that they are two different people. Therefore, although Hyojin doesn't know the series of dazzling achievements of Danzo, but in his heart, his vigilance towards Danzo has been secretly raised by several levels. Jishui and Itachi are both experienced ninjas. Seeing the terrifying power of Danzo, they didn't underestimate the enemy even though they have the advantage in numbers, nor did they become arrogant because of the artifact in their hands. Both of them secretly raised their vigilance like Hyojin. Pitter-patter-patter, at this moment, a dense drizzle fell from the gloomy sky. The falling rain seemed to be a signal, and the 4 Susanoo almost moved at the same time. Shimura Danzo's Susanoo demon was the largest of the 3, and it had an obvious advantage in speed and strength. It slammed its thick palms on the ground. Boom! Amidst the roar, the whole island seemed to tremble, and the ground in front of Shimura Danzo was completely overturned under the heavy impact. At this time, the demon Susanoo of Danzo picked up the 10-meter-long boulder and smashed it hard at Itachi's Susanoo of 10 punches on its left. Whoosh! The boulder, which was more than 10 meters long and looked like a 3-story building, flew towards Itachi's Susanoo of 10 punches, the smallest of the 4 Susanoo. Clang! Because of saving the pupil power, Itachi rarely used Susanoo, so he was not proficient in the use of Susanoo. He was a little slow and failed to avoid the flying boulder. The Susanoo of 10 punches was smashed by the boulder, and the whole Susanoo of 10 punches flew out fiercely, plowing a gully several meters deep on the ground. Taking advantage of this gap, Danzo immediately urged the demon Susanoo, which was on all fours like a beast, to pounce on Jishui's Susanoo of 8 punches on the other side. While flying, Danzo, who was in the diamond-shaped area between the demon Susanoo's eyebrows, shouted, "Uchiha Jishui, this old man was right, you are a member of Amatsukami. Jishui's Susanoo was not a secret in my village, so as soon as Jishui used Susanoo, Danzo immediately recognized Jishui's identity. Jishui did not talk nonsense with Danzo, and immediately raised the artifact Yata no Kagami to meet it. Boom! Another violent roar exploded on the island. The two Susanoo violently collided, smashing a large pit 7 or 8 meters deep on the ground. In the tremor, the cracks on the edge of the pit continued to spread around, and in a moment, these cracks were like a spider web, almost covering the entire island. At the same time, the demon Susanoo, who had hit the artifact Yata no Kagami, was sent flying. Its huge body kept rolling on the ground, plowing deep ditches, and razing the forest on the island to the ground. Naturally, Jishui did not have it easy either. The strength of the demon Susanoo of Shimizu is incredible, even the golden flame Susanoo of Hyuga Shimizu is no match for it, so even though Shursui has the artifact Yata no Kagami, he still felt very strenuous to block this blow. Under the impact of the opponent's attack, his Yata no Susanoo was forced to take several steps back and finally leaned on the ground, knocking down a large number of trees and smashing a large pit in the ground. So strong! For a moment, this was the only thought in Jishui's mind. Chapter 661. Danzo's Demon Susanoo was the real, complete Susanoo. Whether it was size, speed, strength, or flexibility, it crushed the ordinary Susanoo. Although Jishui's Manjikyu Sharingan's pupillary power would not dry up because of the transplanted Hashirama cells, but in his eye sockets, it was only Manjikyu Sharingan, not eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. So no matter how much pupillary power he used, he could only upgrade Susanoo to a level close to the complete Susanoo, but he could not become the real, complete Susanoo. Therefore, in the battle with Danzo's Demon Susanoo, whether it was him or Itachi, they were at a great disadvantage. And his advantage over Itachi was that his artifact, Yata no Kagami, was a defensive type and could be used in battle, while Itachi's artifact, Tenseigan, was an offensive type. Because Hyojin still needed the pair of Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in Danzo's eye sockets, Itachi could not seal Danzo into Tenseigan at all. Boom! After hitting a raised steep slope, Demon Susanoo, who was fiercely bounced back by Yata no Kagami, barely managed to control his body. Danzo, who was dizzy from the recoil, was quite surprised. He knew something about Itachi's artifact, Tenseigan. After all, during the Battle of My Village, Itachi used Tenseigan to seal obsidian once, but he didn't know anything about Jishui's artifact Yata no Kagami, so he mistakenly thought that this recoil ability was the special ability of Jishui's Susanoo, so he was a little afraid of Jishui's Yata no Kagami. Go to hell! At this time, accompanied by a whistling sound, Hyojin's golden flame Susanoo broke through the curtain of rain, like a god descending to earth. He waved the long flame sword in his hand and slashed at Danzo's Demon Susanoo. Danzo, who had just been bounced back by Yata no Kagami, had no way to avoid, so he had to raise his arms to block. Boom! In an instant, the dazzling fiery longsword chopped down on the arms of the Danzo Demon Susanoo. The speed and flexibility shown by Danzo really scared Hyojin. This degree of control of Susanoo was something that even he couldn't match. If Jishui didn't have the artifact Yata no Kagami, he would have been easily knocked away by Danzo like Itachi. Therefore, he didn't hold back and used all his strength. Therefore, the flaming sword quickly cut through Demon Susanoo's left arm and cut into his chest. While the huge impact acted on the Demon Susanoo, it also acted on the ground under the Demon Susanoo. Suddenly, with Danzo's demon Susanoo as the center, cracks spread in all directions and intertwined with the cracks on the ground before. Boom! Another clap of thunder resounded through the sky. Damn it! In the rain curtain of lightning and thunder, Danzo was also ruthless. Not only did he wave the remaining right arm of Demon Susanoo to grab Hyojin's golden flame Susanoo, he even urged Demon Susanoo to bite and tear Hyojin's golden flame Susanoo with his sharp fangs. He knew very well that only the golden flame Susanoo, which was also a complete form Susanoo, was his strong opponent, so he tried to get rid of Itachi and Jishui first, and then fight with Hyojin one-on-one. However, he didn't expect Jishui to have the artifact Yata no Kagami, so his rhythm was interrupted. Rumble, the two complete forms Susanoo wrestled with each other, causing the whole island to shake, and the cracks on the ground became deeper and more numerous. The surrounding waves surged violently crashing against the small island, making the entire island look like it was on the verge of collapse. Itachi and Jishui, who got a chance to breathe, also joined the battle. With Hyojin's golden flame Susanoo in the front, Itachi's 10 punches Susanoo and Jishui's Yata no Kagami Susanoo also had room to play. Each Susanoo is a symbol of invincibility in the shinobi world, and just imagine how earth-shattering it would be if 4 Susanoo were to fight each other. On the small island, whether it was the buildings, trees, or rocks, everything was wiped out in the battle between the 4 Susanoo, and even the island itself was in the process of collapsing. After a while, all 4 Susanoo had lost their previous magical power, each of them was dim and damaged. Among them, the most seriously damaged was Danzo's demon Susanoo. It was almost cut into pieces by the other 3-foot Susanoo. Its arms and legs were either cut off or torn off. In such an adverse situation, Danzo showed a fierce expression and roared, "Today, this old man will let you Uchiha see the true power of the Sharingan." After roaring, the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in Danzo's eye sockets rotated rapidly while flashing with a strange brilliance. Mitsuki! With the eruption of the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, Danzo activated the Manjikyu pupil technique that he had been hiding for a long time. In an instant, the blood mist around the demon Susanoo suddenly soared, and then converged in the air into a bloody river filled with the aura of the underworld. Hyojin, who was at the front, realized that something was wrong and quickly retreated, but his golden flame Susanoo was still grazed by the Danzo's bloody river, and his entire left arm and half of his left shoulder were turned into nothingness. Hyojin was shocked and quickly warned Jishui and Itachi, "Everyone be careful." Hearing Hyojin's warning, Jishui and Itachi quickly retreated. At this time, Danzo, who was surrounded by the blood-red sticks, laughed and said, "Do you see this? This blood that can dissolve everything is the real sticks that my Sharingan used to communicate with the Mitsutsu River in Underworld. Ha ha ha, Uchiha's kaleidoscopes, I'm afraid you would never expect such a day to come." Laughing unscrupulously, Danzo activated his pupil technique and launched an attack. In the heavy rain, the river Styx floated in the air like a bloody ribbon, quickly sweeping toward Hyojin, Jishui, and Itachi. Susanoo. Seeing that the river Styx of the Mitsutsuka was rushing towards him, there was no way to avoid it, so Kuroto had no choice but to use the Manjikyu pupil technique. In an instant, his golden flame Susanoo was wrapped in a thick layer of golden flame armor, and an arm stretched out from both sides of his ribs, a total of 4 arms and 4 swords, and his whole body was shining with golden light. Amaterasu! Itachi knew that his Susanoo couldn't avoid the Danzo's bloody river Styx, so he also used the Manjikyu pupil technique. In an instant, a circle of black flames appeared in the rain, surrounding Itachi's Susanoo in the center. Yata no Kagami. Jishui quickly retreated while protecting the Yata no Kagami in front of him. Chapter 662. The Styx was like a blood-colored ribbon floating in the air. Not only was it extremely fast, but its trajectory was also extremely erratic, completely unpredictable. No matter what it touched along the way, whether it was a rock or a tree, everything turned into nothingness in an instant, as if it never existed. Even the rain in the air and the soil on the ground couldn't be spared. In the face of such a terrifying and powerful Manjikyu jutsu of the Danzo, Hyojin, Jishui, and Itachi each used their own means, either using pupillary jutsu or activating their artifact. On Hyojin's side, after activating the Manjikyu jutsu Susanoo, Kuroto immediately activated the Golden Flame Susanoo, inserting the 4 flame swords in his 4 arms into the ground, and then fully activated the Golden Flames, making the entire Golden Flame Susanoo look like a huge golden torch wrapped in golden flames. Itachi also activated Amaterasu, using the black flames to protect himself. Jishui didn't have the ability to resist the Danzo's Mitsutsukawa's pupillary jutsu, so he had to fully activate the artifact Yata no Kagami and hid his own Susanoo behind the artifact. In the blink of an eye, the blood sticks floated through the rain and swept towards Hyojin's trio. Hyojin, who was at the forefront, was naturally the first to be swept by the blood sticks. The blood in the blood sticks and the dazzling golden flames of Hyojin's golden flame Susanoo instantly overlapped with each other, making a harsh poochie-poochie sound. In an instant, a pungent mist surged out amidst the ear-piercing sound. It spread in all directions, causing the gloomy island to have an indescribable hazy and illusory air. At the same time, one end of the blood sticks swept in front of Itachi, making a large area of contact with the black flames that protected Itachi's 10 punches Susanoo. One is the blood sticks that can corrode everything, and the other is the inextinguishable black flames. Under normal circumstances, it would be impossible for these two things to encounter each other in the shinobi world, but the moment they encountered each other, a fierce battle of life and death broke out. The black flames spread crazily toward the bloody Styx River, trying to burn the bloody water. The bloody water in the Styx River also corroded the black flames crazily, trying to dissolve the unyielding black flames. Both of them were unique existences. For a while, neither of them could do anything to the other. After being delayed by Hyojin and Itachi for a while, the other end of the Crimson Styx finally swept towards Jishui's Yata Susanoo, which was retreating rapidly. Jishui made a prompt decision and hurriedly used the divine artifact, Yata no Kagami, to block the blood-colored Styx that was sweeping towards him. Then, he pressed down and pressed the blood-colored Styx that was sweeping towards him to the ground. Pucci, the artifact Yata no Kagami, could block the Crimson Styx, but the ground could not. Therefore, when Jishui pressed the Crimson Styx that was sweeping towards him into the ground in front of him was instantly corroded into a bottomless pit. Kacha, this bottomless pit seemed to be the last straw that broke the camel's back. All kinds of cracks on the ground intertwined with each other at this moment, producing a chain effect, and the whole ground began to collapse. The huge shock caused the 4 Susanoo, who were fighting on the island, to become unstable at the same time, and they staggered a few steps. At this moment, whether it was Hyojin's side or Danzo who was being besieged, they all realized that the island seemed to be unable to withstand the destruction of the 4 Susanoo and was on the verge of collapse. But even so, neither side had any intention to stop or retreat. At this point, whether it was Hyojin or Danzo, neither of them could accept defeat. For them, only one side can leave this island alive today. Of course, that is if the island can hold on. Ah! Danzo clasped his hands together. His expression was distorted, and his saliva was splattering everywhere as he tried his best to activate the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in his eye sockets. And under the full activation of his pupil power, the Crimson Styx that was consumed in the golden and black flames was constantly replenished. As a result, this battle of 1 against 3 ended up in a stalemate as both sides consumed each other's energy. Frankly speaking, Danzo's Manjikyu Sharingan technique, Mitsuki no Kagami, is very overbearing. It perfectly combines the elements of destruction, strangeness, and speed. If one is not vigilant in advance, even a Kage-level expert is likely to die in front of this Manjikyu Sharingan technique. But Hyojin and the others are not weaklings. The reason why they were temporarily suppressed by Danzo was not only because of the overbearing Mitsuki no Kagami, but also because Danzo's pupil power suppressed them. Although Hyojin's Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan is not inferior to Danzo's, but the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan implanted in this fire release clone has neither the blessing of Hashirama cells, nor has it gone through the ritual. In terms of the strength of chakra, it is not a match for Danzo, who can almost be called a perfect ninja. Without the support of the powerful chakra, he is naturally at a disadvantage in the competition of pupil power. And Jishui and Itachi both have Manjikyu Sharingan. In terms of pupil power, they are inferior to Danzo's Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. So even if Itachi has the overbearing Manjikyu Sharingan technique like Amaterasu, he is still suppressed by Danzo. The fierce confrontation of pupil power is still going on, but the island under their feet is somewhat unable to hold on. Kacha, kacha. The sound of rocks cracking can be heard one after another on the island. The cracks on the ground are increasing in number and depth. Some are even directly connected to the sea, causing seawater to pour in. In the curtain of lightning and thunder, under the surging waves, the entire Tori Island is like a large ship that is about to capsize, struggling to hold on. And the bloody river Styx of Danzo is like an eraser, and Tori Island is like a painting on a canvas. In the stalemate, the bloody river Styx that is constantly rolling up and down is like an eraser randomly rubbing on the painting, erasing the existence of the island one by one. More and more seawater is pouring in, almost drowning 70 to 80% of the island. Many broken rocks on the island fall into the raging sea with a roar, disappearing without a trace, causing the area of the island to shrink rapidly. In such a harsh environment, Hyojin knows that he has to fight, so he gritted his teeth and at the same time, pulled out the 4 flaming swords that are guarding the surroundings to resist the bloody river Styx, and threw them one by one at Danzo's demon Susanoo, that is not far away. At the same time, he also activated his golden flame Susanoo, at the cost of sacrificing half of his body, forcibly crossing the bloody river Styx and pouncing towards Danzo. Chapter 663. Swish, 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 accompanied by a burst of whistling sounds, 4 dazzling flaming swords cut through the rain one after another, slashing towards the Danzo's demon Susanoo in the distance. "Your Sharingan is mine," the Danzo shouted, and with a ferocious expression, he urged the demon Susanoo to meet it. Suijin is well aware of the power of the golden flame Susanoo, and he knows that even with the defensive power of the demon Susanoo, if he is hit head-on, it won't be easy to deal with. But at this time, he could not help but covet Hyojin's Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. He had been waiting for this moment for a long time. The Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in his eye sockets had also been waiting for a long time. In any case, he could not allow himself to miss the opportunity to get the Rinnegan this time, so even if the 4 dazzling flaming swords rushed towards him, he still met them without hesitation. In an instant, the demon Susanoo swung his powerful forearm and forcefully slapped away the 2 flaming swords that were at the forefront of the group. Boom, boom, with 2 loud noises, the flaming swords that were slapped away swept out and hit the ground heavily, stirring up a large amount of gravel, causing the already crumbling island to become even more fragmented. Immediately after, the 3rd flaming sword directly drew an arc in the air. While breaking the rain, it also cut off the right arm of the Danzo's demon Susanoo. Finally, the 4th flaming sword whistled and pierced into the left chest of the Danzo's demon Susanoo. Roar! The demon Susanoo, whose chest was pierced by the flaming sword, suddenly burst out with a heart-wrenching roar that hurt people's eardrums. And at this time, Hyojin's golden flame Susanoo also flew over. Boom! At this moment, the sound of the collision of the two complete Susanoo and the sound of thunder in the air sounded at the same time. Under the curtain of lightning and thunder, the two behemoths once again engaged in the most primitive, most violent wrestle on this shattered island where seawater flowed in. At this time, the condition of the two Susanoo was extremely poor. Danzo's demon Susanoo's entire right arm had been severed, and his chest had been pierced by a fiery longsword, leaving a hole several meters wide. As for Hyojin's golden blaze Susanoo, half of his body had been melted away by the bloody waters of the river Styx, and he was in a wretched state of having his limbs severed. The two complete forms Susanoo were already an arrow at the end of its flight, so after a few rounds of fighting, they were even more broken. Danzo seized the opportunity and abandoned his demon Susanoo. His body flashed, and he entered Hyojin's golden blaze Susanoo. Hyojin was shocked. He didn't expect Danzo to be so crazy, but his hands didn't slow down. He immediately used flame release, filling the interior of the Susanoo with dazzling golden flames. Whoosh! Facing the boundless golden flames in front of him, a ruthless glint flashed in Danzo's eyes. Instead of retreating, he directly activated the rapid release and rushed towards Suijin while enduring the burning of the golden flames with a sharp whooshing sound. After grabbing Hyojin's neck with one hand, Danzo grinned and said, "There can only be one god in the ninja world, and that is this old man." Dark release. At the moment when Danzo grabbed his neck, Hyojin felt that the chakra in his body was leaking out uncontrollably, and he immediately understood that Danzo had used dark release to absorb the chakra. At this time, in the struggle, the mask on Hyojin's face also fell, revealing his immature face hidden under the mask. Looking at the face of Hyojin's fire release clone, Danzo was quite surprised. He frowned and said, "Younger than this old man expected, really not a simple Uchiha." In fact, Danzo has long felt that Homusubi of Amatsukami, who has been helping him to prepare for the Kekkai Genkai fusion ceremony, is not that old, but he didn't expect that the one he regarded as a mortal enemy is just a girl who looks only 16 or 17 years old. Hyojin, who was grabbed by the throat, gasped and said, "Cough, cough, are you surprised?" Danzo, who was still burned by the golden flames, narrowed his eyes and said, "Everything is no longer important, your eternal Manjikyu Sharingan is mine, and the ninja world is also mine." After saying that, the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in Danzo's eye sockets flashed with a strange light. "My pupil force," suddenly, Hyojin's vision became blurred, and he couldn't see anything in front of him, and he felt that his eternal Manjikyu Sharingan's pupil force was rapidly fading away. Danzo suddenly laughed wildly. "Ha ha ha, how is it, this is also this old man's unique pupil technique. Your pupil force will soon belong to this old man." Danzo actually has a pupil technique that can extract pupil force from the air. This is completely out of everyone's expectation. Fortunately, when Danzo used this new pupil technique, whether it was the demon Susanoo, or the Sanjitsu that trapped Jishui and Itachi, all disappeared automatically. Obviously, Danzo can't maintain the other Manjikyu Sharingan's pupil force while extracting the pupil force. Flame! Yain Senpai! Without the entanglement of the blood sticks, Jishui and Itachi instantly urged their respective Susanoo to rush up, trying to rescue Hyojin, who was being extracted by Danzo. Danzo, who has been burned by the golden flame and has completely lost its human appearance, at this time, he opened his mouth and laughed. No one can stop this old man from becoming a god. Accompanied by this presumptuous laughter, countless trees swarmed out from the ground. These would release, that were as violent as Shimura. Danzo's mood immediately entangled Shursui and Itachi's Susanoo, trapping them in place, unable to move at all. How can Danzo's wood release be so strong? Jishui was taken aback. After transplanting the Hashirama cells, he actually figured out some skills to use wood release. But it's far from being as powerful as Danzo's wood release. On the other side, Itachi couldn't care too much at this time. While releasing Amaterasu to burn the wood release that trapped him, he was preparing to use the artifact Tenseigan's sword to seal Danzo and save Hyojin, who was being extracted by Danzo. Danzo seemed to have a premonition of something, and immediately grasped the void in the direction of Itachi with his empty left hand. He still didn't use the Sharingan pupil technique, but once again activated wood release, using wood release to wrap Itachi up. Because chakra and the pupil technique were being absorbed by Danzo at the same time, Hyojin's golden flame Susanoo collapsed little by little, and the golden flame that burned Danzo also slowly dissipated. While strangling Hyojin and using wood release to suppress Jishui and Itachi, Danzo looked up to the sky and roared like a winner. The Rinnegan belongs to this old man will ascend to the top and become a god today. At this time Hyojin, who was strangled by the neck, suddenly showed a smile and said in a very calm tone, "It seems that in this state, you really can't use the ability related to the Sharingan." Listening to Hyojin's words, Danzo was stunned for a moment. Chapter 664. Danzo's ferocious face, which had been badly burned by the golden flames, suddenly flashed with a trace of doubt. After obtaining the power of omniscience that can distort the boundary between life and death, Danzo's intuition has become sharper and sharper, and it is precisely because of this keen intuition that he has been able to avoid several crises. After listening to Hyojin's words just now, he didn't know why, but a sense of uneasiness welled up in his heart. Facing the warning from his intuition, Danzo didn't ignore it. Instead, he carefully looked around the battlefield. However, the doubt on his face didn't disappear at all. Instead, it grew stronger. This was because at this moment on the battlefield, both Jishui and Itachi were trapped by the wood release. Although both of them used various methods to try and break through the wood release, it was obviously not something that could be done in a short time. As for Homusubi, who was being strangled by the neck and having his chakra and ocular powers extracted, he didn't even have the slightest resistance. He was like a fish on the chopping board, waiting to be slaughtered. Where is this uneasiness coming from? Unable to find the reason, Danzo's uneasiness grew, and the doubt on his face became heavier. Everything on the battlefield was clearly under his control, and there was no possibility of the opponent turning the tables. Therefore, he didn't understand why his heart was filled with uneasiness. At this time, Danzo shifted his gaze to Hyojin's face and shouted hysterically, "Why aren't you afraid? Why aren't you afraid? Why aren't you willing to accept your fate?" "I never accept my fate. My fate is in my own hands." Hyojin, who was close to losing his sight, said in a calm tone as if he didn't care about his chakra and ocular powers being extracted. Danzo's burnt face suddenly twisted and he snarled, "This time, you lost. It's your Amatsukami that lost. Do you know that even the leader of the Akatsuki, Nagato, was defeated by this old man? What makes you think you can compete with this old man? This old man has the strongest Sharingan, the strongest wood release, hell release, speed release, crystal release, boiling release, and mist release. This old man is invincible, and this old man will ascend to the peak of the shinobi world." The calmer Hyojin was, the more flustered Danzo felt. His hysterical roar didn't seem to be to make Hyojin yield, but to convince himself to resist the growing uneasiness in the depths of his heart. After confirming that he can't use any abilities related to the Sharingan, Hyojin chuckled, "Nagato will lose because he thinks that he is already a god, and I will win because I know that I am not a god yet." With that, Hyojin's head tilted and he lost consciousness. "You?" Seeing this, Danzo was stunned for a moment. He vaguely felt that something has disappeared from Suijin's body, but because his Manjikyu Sharingan is currently absorbing the pupillary power of Suijin's Manjikyu Sharingan, all of his abilities are greatly limited, so he can't accurately determine what it is that disappeared from Suijin's body for a while. However, for some reason, when the flame devil in his hand lost consciousness, the uneasiness in his heart skyrocketed. A warning that came from his soul was frantically telling him to run, run, boom, boom. At this time, another rumble of thunder sounded in the gloomy sky. The rain became heavier and heavier, turning from a drizzle to a torrential downpour. Accompanied by the howling wind and the surging waves, it was a scene of doomsday. Standing on the broken island, Danzo held the unconscious Homasubi in his hand and shouted, "Even if the end of the world comes today, it will not be able to stop this old man." His reason was blinded by madness. He ignored the warning from his inner intuition and continued to greedily absorb the pupillary powers of the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in Homasubi's eye sockets. With the absorption of the pupillary powers, the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in his eye sockets also changed. The original gear-shaped Manjikyu pattern gradually spread into a circle of Rinnegan lines, and the blood-like scarlet color also gradually faded. Soon, I will be able to obtain the legendary Sage's Eye. Feeling the evolution trend of the Sharingan in his eye sockets, Danzo was ecstatic. In a trance, he seemed to see the Rinnegan right in front of him. As long as he persisted a little longer, he would be able to obtain the Rinnegan. But at this moment, he suddenly felt an indescribably powerful chakra approaching him at a rapid speed, even faster than him who was using Hakushin at full strength, and the moment he sensed this chakra, his heart pounded violently, as if he had encountered a natural enemy, and his body instinctively reacted with fear. Whoosh! Accompanied by a harsh whistling sound, a sapphire-blue figure flew through the rain like a meteor. In just a blink of an eye, the figure that was still far away in the sky suddenly appeared behind Danzo, and without waiting for Danzo to react, the figure waved a black dagger and pierced through Danzo's body. Puff! Danzo spat out a mouthful of blood, then mechanically looked back, and after seeing the person who attacked him, his pupil suddenly shrank. "It's you? Hyojin." There is no doubt that the one who attacked Danzo was Hyojin, who was using the Een release body. After confirming that during the absorption process, his fire clone and Danzo were unable to use any abilities related to the Sharingan, Hyojin decisively withdrew his spiritual body from the fire clone, and then returned to the Een release body that was deployed not far away from Terodo Island, and activated the second backup plan. As Hyojin said before, he will win because he knows that he is not a god, so he will either not make a move, or once he makes a move, he will go all out like a lion hunting a rabbit to ensure his victory. The Een release body is not his final trump card. At this moment in the distant sky, the energy cannon of the Sky Fortress is charging and aiming at Terodo Island. If the Een release body is unable to win, then the energy cannon in the Sky Fortress at 200% overload will completely erase the entire Terodo Island from the world in an instant. Because of this, Hyojin did not wear the Yama mask with the demon pattern on it this time. Staring at Hyojin in the Tenseigan chakra mode, staring at Hyojin's eyes that seemed to contain the sun, moon, and stars, Danzo's hideous face was full of shock. How could it be you? A mere cannon fodder of the Hyuga branch family, a poor worm who can't even control his own life and death. How could he be the leader of Amatsukami? First Sentai. Chapter 665. Looking at Danzo's incredulous face, Hyojin chuckled and said, "Speaking of which, the founding of Amatsukami is related to you. If it wasn't for you forcing Nagato to rebel and trying to destroy Uchiha, I wouldn't have spent so much time and effort to establish Amatsukami." The reason Hyojin founded Amatsukami was to fight against Akatsuki. and the one who made the transition from Yahiko's era to Nagato's era was not Obsidian or Black Zetsu, but Danzo, who was the advisor of Mai. Danzo's face froze and he was speechless. After learning that the leader of Amatsukami was Hyojin, he quickly recalled the history of Amatsukami and was surprised to find that Amatsukami was indeed using another method to protect the village against Akatsuki. How is this possible? How can the leader of Amatsukami be a Mai ninja? Danzo still couldn't believe that the leader of Amatsukami, 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 the leader of the Hyuga family, was actually a member of the Hyuga family. To him, this was simply too absurd. Hyojin curled his lips and said, "What made you think that the leader of Amatsukami is not a Mai ninja?" Danzo couldn't believe it. Amatsukami is a secret organization that can suppress Akatsuki. This old man has been searching for Yama for so many years, but there is no clue. How can it be you? How can you be a ninja from the village? If it wasn't for you acting on your own, plotting against Akatsuki and killing Yahiko, why would Nagato, the disciple of Jiraiya, hate Mai so much? The Akatsuki had a chance to merge with Konoha, and at the very least, they could become Konoha's ally. Didn't you push them away? After a pause, Hyojin coldly said, "Both Amatsukami and Akatsuki are actually Mai's people. The so-called confrontation is just an internal conflict between Mai and Akatsuki. Whether it is Nagato, the disciple of Jiraiya, or Obsidian of Uchiha clan, the two leaders of Akatsuki are inseparable from Mai. It can even be said that they are Mai's ninjas. And the one who created Nagato and Obito was none other than Uchiha Madara, one of the two leaders who created Konoha. Therefore, whether it is the current situation or the source, Akatsuki has the blood of Mai flowing in it. It is a piece of flesh separated from Mai. Not to mention, all the members of Amatsukami are Mai's ninjas. Therefore, the Akatsuki and Amatsukami that intimidated the shinobi world and suppressed the 5 great shinobi villages are actually Mai's people. The confrontation between Akatsuki and Amatsukami is just an internal conflict between the villages. Danzo's mouth was wide open, and he was speechless. What Kuroda said just now completely subverted his understanding of the two secret organizations, Akatsuki and Amatsukami, and also subverted his understanding of Konoha village. But soon, the evolution of the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in his eye sockets pulled Danzo back from his thoughts. He glared at Suijin and roared, "Whether you are the leader of Amatsukami or not, in this old man's eyes, you are just a small fry of the Hyuga family, a bug that I can pinch in my hand and kill whenever I want." "Is that so?" Hyojin glanced at the black dagger that pierced Danzo's body and chuckled. "This kind of injury is not even worth mentioning to this old man. This old man only wants—" Halfway through his words, Danzo couldn't help but vomit a mouthful of blood. Then, he was surprised to find that the place where Hyojin's dagger pierced had completely lost feeling, and this numbness seemed to be spreading. Swish! After pulling out the black dagger that pierced Danzo's body, Hyojin played with the dagger and said, "This is called Truth-Seeking Ball, formed by the fusion of Yin and Yang, 5 elements and 7 chakra. Without the power of the 6 realms or the immortal art chakra, you don't even have the qualification to touch it, let alone resist it. And if you are stabbed by it, even with your current body, it will be difficult for you to recover." Looking at the substance in Suijin's hand, that sometimes turned into a black ball and sometimes into a black dagger, Danzo's expression turned solemn as he muttered, "Truth-seeking ball?" Danzo, who had experienced the Kekkai Genkai fusion ritual, understood what it meant to fuse Yin and Yang, 5 elements and 7 chakra, so he was very clear about the power of this black ball. Hyojin then said, "Just now you have missed the last chance to escape, now please die quietly." "How can this old man die in the hands of a mere Hyuga branch family?" After a loud shout, Danzo ignored the injuries on his body and used his empty hand to grasp at Hyojin. Rumble, in an instant, countless trees were uprooted from the ground and swarmed towards Hyojin. But at this moment, the black ball in Hyojin's hand suddenly turned into a black longsword, flying and blocking all the trees that were rushing towards Hyojin. These trees that were strengthened by the wood release chakra were supposed to be very tough and strong, but under the black longsword's slash, they were like ordinary trees, easily chopped into pieces. The trees that covered the sky were actually blocked by the black longsword, unable to get close to Hyojin at all. Danzo was shocked. How is this possible? This old man's wood release is stronger than a Hashirama, how can it not be able to deal with you? Hyojin was speechless and said, "You haven't even touched the threshold of the immortal technique, and you still dare to compete with a Hashirama in wood release, you are really ignorant and fearless. If it was a Hashirama who used wood release, a truth-seeking ball wouldn't be enough. After all, wood release is supported by the immortal technique, it is one of the most difficult abilities to deal with in the shinobi world." Hyojin was too lazy to deal with Danzo. He casually waved his hand, and the trees that were rushing towards him were immediately repelled. At this time, Danzo suddenly noticed the Tenseigan in Hyojin's eye sockets when he used rain pull, and immediately exclaimed, "Your eyes are not Byakugan. Whose eyes did you transplant?" After repelling all the trees, Hyojin slowly walked towards Danzo. "These are my eyes." Danzo retreated while shouting, "No, this is impossible. This is not the Byakugan, you can't fool this old man." Hyojin lightly said, "The Sharingan can evolve into Manjikyu Sharingan, Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, and even Rinnegan, so why can't the Byakugan evolve? These eyes of mine are the true treasure of the Hyuga clan." Danzo asked, "What is it called?" "Tenseigan. Second cycle." Chapter 666. Tenseigan? Danzo stared at the Tenseigan in Hyojin's eye sockets, seemingly fascinated by the bright light of the stars contained in the Tenseigan. Because of the activities of the Manjikyu Uchiha, even if he hates the Uchiha clan, in his heart, Danzo still firmly believes that the Byakugan of the Hyuga clan is not comparable to the Sharingan of the Uchiha clan. He even felt that the two were not on the same level at all. Or to be more precise, all other pupil technique Kekii limit are dwarfed in front of the Sharingan that can continuously evolve, because the Manjikyu Sharingan, the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, and even the higher-level Rinnegan known as the Sages are beyond the level of ordinary pupil technique. But after seeing the pair of Tenseigan in Hyojin's eyes, he realized something and muttered, "No wonder your Hyuga clan and the Uchiha clan can be called the two great pupil bloodline clans. It turns out that the Byakugan can also evolve." At this time, Jishui and Itachi in the distance broke through the obstruction of the Danzo would release one after another, urging their respective Susanoo, accompanied by a whistling sound, rushed over. "Senior! Senior!" After seeing Hyojin personally take action, the two of them breathed a sigh of relief at the same time. Just like everyone else, the invincible image of Hyojin, the leader of Amatsukami, was deeply engraved in Jishui and Itachi's hearts. Therefore, as long as Hyojin was present, no matter what kind of enemy they faced, they were confident. Hyojin nodded at Jishui and Itachi, who were panting heavily. Danzo turned his attention to the two, as he gritted his teeth and roared, "Uchiha Jishui, Itachi Uchiha, you two bastards have hidden your strength well." After fighting for a while, Itachi's mask of Balrog had fallen off, and Jishui's identity was exposed when he used Susanoo, so Danzo recognized them. And when he thought of the fact that all the members of Amatsukami were hiding right under his nose, swaggering in and out of the village, Danzo couldn't help but spit out a mouthful of blood. Jishui and Itachi ignored Danzo's insults, instead focusing their attention on the seemingly unconscious Uchiha-kan, who was still clutched in Danzo's hand. Itachi couldn't help but shout, "Senior Yen, are you alright?" Danzo raised Hyojin's fire body clone and grinned at Itachi. What do you think? At this moment, Hyojin's fire body clone had lost the support of its soul, and its aura was completely depleted. At first glance, it looked like a corpse that had just died. Itachi's face was immediately covered with a layer of cold frost. He had always liked to hide his emotions, but now, his killing intent had completely soared. Jishui was also shocked and angry, and hurriedly said to Hyojin with a face full of shame, "Senpai, I'm sorry, we underestimated Danzo's strength, and let Takkan fall into his hands." After all, he is such a person, so he no longer threatened Hyojin with the fire clone in his hand, but launched a ninjutsu towards Hyojin. In an instant, crystal release, nether release, boiling release, mist release, and other Kekai ninjutsu were used one after another, but all of them were easily resolved by Hyojin. Looking at Hyojin's unstoppable pace, and feeling the evolution of the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in his eye sockets, Danzo roared with a crazy expression, "Just a little bit more, just a little bit more!" However, what Danzo doesn't understand is that the closer he is to the Rinnegan, the closer he is to death. If he stopped absorbing the pupil power at this time, threw Hyojin's fire clone aside, and turned around and ran away, Hyojin wouldn't be able to do anything to him, but obviously, he was too greedy to realize this. At this time, after seeing Danzo's eyes began to show obvious changes, Hyojin, who has been deliberately dawdling, knew that the final opportunity to make a move has come. The first chapter. Chapter 667. Swish, wrapped in the sapphire blue Tenseigan chakra, Hyojin quickly passed through the pouring rain like a flash of light and arrived in front of the Danzo. At this moment, time seemed to freeze. The Danzo's face that was burned beyond recognition by the golden flames flashed with surprise, anger, and faint expectation, all of which were reflected in Hyojin's eyes. Hyojin can even clearly see the great changes in the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in the Danzo's eye socket. At this time, the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan no longer has the iconic scarlet color of the Sharingan. Instead, it was replaced by a touch of pink, and the color continues to fade and become colder. It seems to be changing towards the cold dark purple color of the Rinnegan. As for the pattern in the pupil, it is also changing at this moment. The original gear shape has now become a series of slightly undulating circles, although there are some problems with the spacing of these circles, and some of the circles even overlap with each other, but the pattern of the Rinnegan has already begun to appear. There is no doubt that the evolution of the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in the Danzo is coming to an end. Capturing all the details reflected in the eyes of his reincarnation, the corners of Kuroto's mouth naturally rose. The timing of his attack was just right. There were only a few seconds left before the birth of a new pair of Rinnegan. In the face of Hyojin's surprise attack, the Danzo is not unable to react. Although Hyojin in the Tenseigan chakra mode is extremely fast, he can't escape the insight of the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan that is about to evolve into the Rinnegan, not to mention that the Danzo also has the Hakusho. The reaction speed of his body is the best in the shinobi world, not inferior to Hyojin who has the Tenseigan. Therefore, at the moment when Hyojin launched his surprise attack, the Danzo had at least 1 or 2 seconds to react, and although this reaction time is not enough for him to completely get rid of Hyojin's surprise attack, it is enough for him to use the corresponding countermeasures. At this moment, the Danzo's keen intuition warned him frantically. He has never felt such a strong and crazy warning before, so Danzo didn't need to think about it to understand that he wouldn't be able to resist Suijin's attack, so his body instinctively reacted and subconsciously activated the forbidden technique Izanagi, which can change fate in order to save his life. No. Just a little more, just a little more. However, just as his body was about to activate Izanagi, Danzo forcefully suppressed it. Kuroto can feel that in another 4 or 5 seconds, no, at most 2 or 3 seconds, that is, 1 or 2 breaths, the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in his eye sockets will evolve into the Rinnegan, which is known as the Eye of the Sage. As long as this old man obtains the Eye of Samsara, the scales of victory will once again tilt towards this old man's side. This is the last chance, the only chance. Seeing Hyojin's figure getting closer and closer, Danzo roared hysterically in his heart. When faced with the choice between Eye of Reincarnation and life, he, who was driven by greed and anger, chose the former. He chose the Eye of Reincarnation, that could only be obtained after 1 or 2 breaths. Huff! At the same time, Danzo gathered all the chakra in his body and launched all the ninjutsu he could at Hyojin at the same time. In an instant, boundless trees, blood-red crystals, dazzling lightning, pungent acid fog, and so on, all rushed towards Hyojin. All these were not to kill Hyojin, but to stop Hyojin for 1 or 2 breaths. Boom! With a loud noise, it was as if the frozen time was pushed forward. Trees, crystals, lightning, acid fog, and so on were instantly disintegrated in front of the truth-seeking balls, as if they were illusions, and could not stop Hyojin at all. You? A moment ago, Danzo's face was filled with madness, but in the next second, all the expressions on his face froze, and he subconsciously cried out in surprise. Just as the word, "you," came out of his mouth, and the next word was still in his throat, he suddenly felt his vision darken, and his eyes were dug out from his eye sockets. No! Danzo let out a roar full of despair from his chest. At this time, even he himself could not figure out whether this roar of despair came from the Manjikyu Sharingan being dug out, or from the Rinnegan again. Quickly removing the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan from Danzo's eye sockets, Hyojin used Rain Pull to hold the pair of eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in the air, and with a backhand wave, he used the truth-seeking ball to cut off Danzo's arm that was holding the fire clone, and then used Rain Pull to suck the fire clone to his side. After a little distance, Hyojin didn't care about Danzo, who was kneeling on the ground, but calmly put the fire clone on the ground, and then took out a small nutrition tank from the ninja bag on his waist, and put the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in it. Through the small nutrition tank, Hyojin observed for a while. Perhaps because the evolution was interrupted again, this pair of eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, which has the characteristics of the Rinnegan, not only returned to the appearance of an ordinary Sharingan, but also looked a little withered, completely losing the previous eerie feeling. Immediately afterward, Hyojin observed the pair of eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in the eye sockets of the fire clone, and found that the pair of eternal Manjikyu Sharingan had also lost its luster due to absorbing too much of the pupillary power. After this torment, it seems that it will take some time for these 2 pairs of eternal Manjikyu Sharingan to recover. After a simple assessment, Hyojin confirmed that although the 2 pairs of eternal Manjikyu Sharingan were damaged, their foundation was not damaged, and they should be able to recover again after a little time. On the other side, seeing that Hyojin had instantly completed the eye-snatching and rescue of Uchiha, Jishui and Itachi both breathed a long sigh of relief and released their respective Susanoo. Glancing at Danzo, who was kneeling on the ground and still wailing, Jishui said to Hyojin, "Fortunately you arrived in time, otherwise the consequences would have been unimaginable." Itachi asked with a little shame, "Yama-senpai, is she okay?" Hyojin said, "I underestimated Danzo, you don't have to blame yourselves." Jishui squatted beside the fire clone with concern, wanting to check the injuries of the fire clone. In his heart, Uchiha Sharingan is his savior. If it weren't for Uchiha Sharingan generously lending him the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan last time, the probability of him surviving the Hashirama cell transplantation surgery would have been much smaller. Hyojin quickly stopped Jishui and said, "It's just that his pupillary power has been overused, you don't have to worry too much." At this time, Danzo stopped wailing, got up from the ground and tried to escape, but as soon as he got up, he staggered and fell to the ground. Then he felt the numbness of the wound continue to spread, and his whole body seemed to lose consciousness. He exclaimed, What's wrong with my body? The second chapter. Chapter 668. After sealing the small nutrition tank containing the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan into a storage scroll and storing it in the ninja pouch on his waist, Hyojin walked towards Danzo. At this time, Danzo no longer has the previous madness and ruthlessness. His burnt face is full of panic. He crawled on the ground in embarrassment, moving a little bit, struggling in vain. The area on his back that was pierced by Hyojin's truth-seeking ball is completely necrotic, and this necrotic phenomenon is gradually spreading. The same is true for his severed arm, and because the area of the wound is too large, the area affected is much wider than the wound on his back, and even his neck has black spots of necrosis. Why? This kind of injury is obviously not worth mentioning. Why can't it heal? While struggling in vain, Danzo muttered. Walking towards Danzo, Hyojin said in a calm tone, As I said before, without the power of the sixth path, without the sage jutsu chakra, any material that comes into contact with the truth-seeking ball will be ruthlessly decomposed, and your body is no exception. Danzo was startled for a moment when he heard this, then suddenly said, That previous attack, you deliberately avoided this old man's vital parts? After losing the Manjikyu Sharingan, without the temptation of greed, without the influence of madness, Danzo's consciousness has become a lot clearer, and he immediately understood Hyojin's actions. Yes. Hyojin didn't hide it and nodded lightly. The reason why Kuroto deliberately avoided Danzo's vital parts when he used the Truth Seeker's Jade Thorn to stab Danzo's back was because he was afraid that Danzo would activate Izanagi and destroy an eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. The reason why he stabbed Danzo with the Truth-Seeking Ball is because the essence of the Truth-Seeking Ball is the fusion of 7 attributes of chakra, and any ordinary material that touches the Truth-Seeking Ball will be destroyed and decomposed from the microscopic level. Although Danzo had survived the ritual and obtained the power of omniscient nature, and was only one step away from evolving the Rinnegan, after all, he had not reached the true meaning of the six-path realm. Therefore, although his body would not be completely decomposed by the truth-seeking ball in an instant like ordinary matter, the necrosis of his cells was inevitable. It can be said that the moment Danzo was hit by the truth-seeking ball, his strength was drained little by little, and his life began to enter a countdown. Unless he could obtain the Eye of Samsara before his body completely died and use the more powerful, boundless power of nature to repair his wounds, the necrosis of his body was irreversible, even if he had the first-generation cells. Danzo smiled bitterly and said, So you have been worried that this old man will use Izanagi to destroy the Manjikyu Sharingan. Combining the timing of Hyojin's 2 attacks, Danzo finally guessed the purpose of Hyojin's action. He suddenly understood that his own greed and arrogance are the main culprits that led to his current situation. If he had given up on absorbing the pupil power earlier, or suppressed the urge to immediately obtain the Rinnegan, and dug out the Manjikyu Sharingan of Homasubi, and found another safe place to absorb the pupil power, the result would have been different. Yes. Hyojin still didn't deny it. You deliberately let this old man absorb Homasubi's pupil power. After a pause, recalling Homasubi's abnormal behavior before, Danzo suddenly reacted. No, it was Homasubi who deliberately let this old man absorb her pupil power. It was she who personally handed the tempting poison Rinnegan to this old man, confusing this old man's judgment. Danzo had been wondering why Homasubi didn't put up any resistance after being captured by him. Instead, Homasubi kept trying to see if he could use the power of the Sharingan when he absorbed the pupil prowess. Now that he thought about it, everything became clear. It turned out that from that moment on, Homasubi has used his Manjikyu Sharingan as a sweet bait to restrict him from using Izanagi. Thinking of this, Danzo asked in confusion, Why? Why would such a powerful Uchiha listen to Hyojin's orders, even at the cost of her Manjikyu Sharingan? Sacrificing the opportunity to obtain the Rinnegan? Why would Uchiha Jishue, Itachi Uchiha, these despicable and cunning Uchiha also follow your orders? This is unreasonable. Without waiting for Hyojin to answer, Jishue on the side said, because only Kuroto-senpai can save Uchiha. Danzo turned his head towards Jishue's direction and roared, this old man is Naruto, only this old man can save you damn Uchiha should obey this old man, not him. Humph! Jishue and Itachi snorted coldly in unison. At this time, Hyojin said to Jishue and Itachi, you two go back to the village first, I will take care of the aftermath here. Jishue glanced at the fire clone lying on the ground and asked, do you need us to take Hiro back to the village for treatment? Shaking his head, Hyojin said, don't worry, I will treat her. Jishue and Itachi no longer said anything, they are very confident in Hyojin's ability, so they immediately left the island that was about to be engulfed by the storm. After Jishue and Itachi left, Hyojin said to Danzo, to be honest, I should thank you, you helped me find the way ahead, let me understand the loopholes and hidden dangers in the ritual. Danzo was shocked. The one behind all this is not Homusubi, but you. Before this, he always thought that it was only Homusubi who plotted against him, not the entire Amatsukami, because only Homusubi participated in the whole process of the ritual, and in the final stage, he showed his fangs and competed with him for the Eye of Rinnegan. Well, from the time when Hikari sold you the Chimera technique, to the time when Homusubi guided you to complete the ritual, it was all my idea, because I need a person with financial resources and courage to explore the path ahead. Hyojin's tone was flat, as if he was just chatting after a meal. After listening to Homusubi, Danzo's whole body was like falling into an ice cellar. He always thought that he was using the technology of Amatsukami and Orochimaru, and he was the leader and the beneficiary. But now he understood that it was this young man in front of him who was like using a carrot to tease a donkey, secretly guiding him step by step, and as the proxy of Naruto, he was completely reduced to a chess piece of the other party. No, it should be more accurate to say that he was a lab rat to explore the path to godhood. Danzo suddenly asked, why are you telling me this? At this time, Hyojin waved his hand and several truth-seeking balls hovered around him, then he said to Danzo, telling you the truth is the reward for exploring the path ahead for me, now please disappear completely. Chapter 669. Although Danzo had lost both his eyes and his vision, he still had the ability to sense chakra. When he felt the intense chakra wave from the truth-seeking ball, he immediately understood that Hyojin would not let him go, so he said, this old man has always thought that the Hyuga clan is just a bunch of useless watchdogs. I didn't expect to see a monster like you. You obviously have such powerful strength, but you can still maintain the vigilance of a ninja and restrain the arrogance in your heart. Hyojin, this old man lost to you, and it's not an injustice. After a pause, the corner of Danzo's mouth cracked open, and he roared, but this old man is Danzo, Mise Naruto. Even if I have to die, I will drag you down with me, you damn bastard. After roaring, the blood on Danzo's body spurted out like ink. The blood ink condensed into a sealing technique in the air, emitting a deathly aura. Inner four symbols seal. Hyojin's expression did not change. He gently waved his left hand, and several truth-seeking balls around him flew out like arrows, quickly hitting Danzo, who was about to activate the inner four symbols seal. Bang bang with two muffled sounds, Danzo's whole body was hit like a rag, and the place that was hit by the truth-seeking ball was completely pierced, and the surrounding flesh and blood disappeared without a trace. There was no doubt that after losing the Manjikyu Sharingan in his eye socket, The omniscient force in Danzo's body was greatly weakened, and he could no longer resist the decomposition of the truth-seeking ball like before. Cough, cough, falling to the ground, Danzo, who was interrupted, coughed out a big mouthful of blood. Hyojin's eyes slightly narrowed. Danzo's life force had far exceeded his expectations. It was evident that the bloodline fusion ritual had indeed changed Danzo's body, and slightly raised Danzo's level of existence. At this time, Danzo, who was lying on the ground, said, "Hyojin, do you think that by killing this old man, no one will know your secret? I'm sure you know about the impure earth reincarnation technique that second-generation Aiden developed, right? This old man knows so many secrets. In the future, there will definitely be people who will try to use the impure earth reincarnation on me. At that time, you and your god's organization will be exposed to everyone." Hyojin said nothing, his face full of disdain and pity. The blind Danzo thought that he had scared Hyojin, so he hurriedly said, "I can keep your secret for you, as long as you are willing to let me go. You and your god's organization can continue to hide in the village and do whatever you want." Hyojin curled his lips. "In any case, you have been the representative of Naruto. Why do you have to embarrass yourself like this?" Danzo coughed up blood as he shouted, "I can't die. The village still needs me to revitalize it. How can I die in such a place?" "As long as you lie to yourself like this, you can order others to die with a peace of mind." Chuckling, Tenseigan continued, "During the Kyuubi rebellion, you, as the consulting elder, disappeared without a trace, and when the Akatsuki attacked the village last time, you did nothing and just watched the village collapse. Don't talk about being the consulting elder, you haven't even fulfilled your duty as a Mai ninja. How can you talk about revitalizing the village? This kind of self-deception is too laughable." Danzo still wanted to say, "If you want to keep the secret of your god's organization, you can't kill." Before Danzo could finish, several truth-seeking balls gathered together and turned into a huge sphere. Then, it covered Danzo from top to bottom, disintegrating him along with the ground beneath him. Following the final blow from the truth-seeking ball, Danzo's threatening shout came to an abrupt end. "Tsk, even in death, you don't forget to disgust others." Letting out a light sigh, Tenseigan released all the truth-seeking balls. He didn't care about Danzo's last threat at all. After all, the truth-seeking ball did not only disintegrate the physical body. Even the incorporeal spiritual body could not resist the disintegration of the truth-seeking ball. In the original space and time, the 4 generations Naruto of the impure earth form had both his arms completely destroyed by the truth-seeking ball. Even the infinite regenerative impure earth reincarnation technique was useless. The reason was because the truth-seeking ball destroyed the spiritual body of the 4 generations Naruto of the impure earth form, causing the impure earth reincarnation technique to fail. In other words, even the impure earth reincarnation technique, a forbidden technique that could distort the boundary between life and death, could not summon the spiritual body of a person who was disintegrated by the truth-seeking ball. This was because Danzo's spiritual body had been completely annihilated along with his body. Using the Tenseigan to scan the surroundings one last time, and after confirming that he didn't miss anything, Tenseigan took the fire clone lying on the ground, and with a flicker of his figure, he left the shattered Tuberto Island. Arriving at a reef not far from Torishado Island, Hyojin ordered the 4 generations Mizuka Jigura, who was guarding the reef, alone. Immediately arrange some people to chase after Danzo in the southwest direction, create the illusion that Danzo escaped to the Desert of the Wind Nation. "Yes, I'll arrange it right away." Yagura nodded respectfully. Rumble, at this moment, Naidu Island in the distance was completely shattered by a huge wave. It fell into the raging sea in pieces, as if it had never existed. The traces of the Susanoo battle, the wood release ninjutsu, the crystal release ninjutsu, and so on also sank into the vast sea together with the island boom. Amidst the lightning and thunder, May and the others were rushing in the direction of Torishado Island in the heavy rain. At this moment, all of their hearts were in their throats. When they thought of the shocking achievements of Danzo and the information that was just sent back to the village, they couldn't help but worry about the safety of the 4 generations Mizukage. Looking at the gloomy gray sky in front of them, May secretly vowed in her heart, "I will never let the village repeat the same mistake and become a plaything in the palm of others again." After a long time, the group finally arrived near Torishado Island. However, looking at the endless sea in front of them, everyone was stunned. Many of them had been to Torishado Island, so they were sure that they didn't go in the wrong direction, but the huge Torishado Island had disappeared. At this moment, the 4 generations Mizukage appeared from the sea and said to the people of the Mist Village, "There's no need to look, Torishado Island has sunk." May hurriedly asked, "4 generations, are you okay?" Yagura shook his head and said, "Danzo wanted to plot against me, but I saw through it. We had a big fight and he couldn't win, so he fled southwest. Now everyone listen to my command, follow me and chase after Danzo." May turned her head and glanced at Aoi. Aoi nodded at May, hinting that Mizukage was not under the control of the illusion. May heaved a sigh of relief, and immediately followed the Mist Village in the rain to chase southwest. Second night. Chapter 670. Inside the Sky Fortress. After throwing the fire clone into the large nutrition tank, Hyojin checked the physical signs of the fire clone with an instrument and found that many of the meridians in the fire clone's body have been damaged, and the injury is much more serious than he imagined. Is it because of the nether release? While looking at the physical signs of the fire clone detected by the instrument, Hyojin analyzed the cause of the injury in his heart. In the previous fierce battles, because of the protection of Susanoo, the fire release clone did not suffer any damage. So what caused the fire release clone to be damaged was the last stage, when it was captured by Danzo and absorbed the pupil power. Hyojin doesn't know much about the nether release. However, as long as he thinks about it a little, he can guess that when the nether release extracts the enemy's chakra, it will not be gentle, and the whole extraction process will be destructive. It seems that this fire clone will also need some time to slowly recover. Hyojin shook his head and sighed lightly. At this moment, of the 6 large nutrition tanks in front of him specially prepared for the 6 chakra clones, 3 of them are already being repaired. Needless to say, the wind clone is already an old resident of the large nutrition tank, and in the foreseeable future, it will probably spend most of its time in the large nutrition tank. The Earth clone number 2 that was damaged not long ago is also soaking in the large nutrition tank at this moment. The consequences of using the dust release rashly without fully mastering it are now completely revealed. How long will it take for the Earth clone number 2 to completely recover? Even Hyojin can't judge for a while. Counting the fire clone that has just been thrown into the large nutrition tank and is soaking side by side with the wind clone and the earth clone number 2, it can be said that Hyojin can only use his Een release and water clone at the moment. Fortunately, the matter with the Danzo has been resolved satisfactorily, and his pair of Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan has also been successfully recovered. Compared with this result, the damage to the fire release clone is not worth mentioning. Thinking of this, Hyojin took out the storage scroll with the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan sealed in it from the ninja bag hanging on his waist. After unlocking the seal, through the glass wall of the small nutrition tank, Hyojin opened his Tenseigan and carefully observed the pair of Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan soaking in the small nutrition tank. The interruption of the evolution this time is very damaging to the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. Not to mention the consumption of a large amount of pupil power, even the power of the world of nature used to attack the Rinnegan has been consumed in vain. At this time, it has completely lost the monster feeling it had before. Even the living characteristic has weakened a lot, as if it has become an ordinary Sanmagatama Sharingan. How can I help it recover its eye power? Rubbing his chin, Hyojin fell into deep thought. The biggest difference between the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan and the Manjikyu Sharingan is that no matter how much pupil power is consumed in the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, it can slowly recover over time. As long as the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan is not seriously damaged, it will never lose its sight. But there is also a prerequisite, that is, the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan needs a suitable host to act as the provider of the chakra to restore the pupil power. Soaking the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in the nutrient tank alone will not help it recover. After thinking about it for a while, Hyojin took out his water clone and transplanted the pair of Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan into the eye sockets of the water clone. Then, he used the soul descent technique to enter the body of the water clone. In an instant, a heavy trance filled Kuroto's mind, causing him to stagger and fall directly from the operating table, unable to recover for a long time. After a long time, Kuroto leaned on the operating table, gasping for breath, and muttered, "Damn it, I didn't expect the rejection to be so strong. It seems that the water clone is not compatible with this pair of Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. Once again, it has been proven that without the blood of Uchiha, without the special body of Senju and Uzumaki clan, it would be very difficult to control the Manjikyu Sharingan." After the spirit body returned to the main body, Hyojin didn't delay and immediately removed the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan from the eye sockets of the water clone. Implanting the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan into a body that is not compatible with the water clone is a heavy burden, whether it is for the Sharingan or the body, and over time, it will cause damage to both sides. It seems that I can only let Xiang Lin do it. Although there are many people under Hyojin who are qualified to nourish the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, but the most suitable one is Xiang Lin, who has the bloodline of the Uzumaki clan. It must be known that Nagato, who also has the bloodline of the Uzumaki clan, was secretly transplanted with the Rinnegan by Madara Uchiha when he was a child. Xiang Lin's talent is actually not much worse than the Nagato of the same clan. Her innate healing talent is actually a direct manifestation of the high-intensity yang release chakra in her body. It can be said that even among the Uzumaki clan, Xiang Lin's talent is outstanding, and she belongs to the best of the Uzumaki clan. In the original time and space, she almost did not receive any formal ninja education during her childhood, not to mention the cultivation of the Uzumaki clan. After being incorporated by Orochimaru, she was only treated as a tool by Orochimaru, and he did not guide her carefully. But even so, she still comprehended the secret techniques of the Uzumaki clan, including Kagura Mind Eye and Diamond Lock with her own talent, which shows how exaggerated her talent is. That's right, let her adapt to the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan first and prepare for the Rinnegan transplant in the future. Hyojin was also prepared to use Xiang Lin as his last insurance, so he implanted the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in her eye socket in advance. It can be said to kill two birds with one stone. Not only can he use Xiang Lin's physique to restore the Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan's pupil power, but also let Xiang Lin adapt to the feeling of a pupil technique ninja in advance and prepare for the Rinnegan transplant in the future. According to his experience, Hyojin feels that the pair of Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan on the fire release clone will recover to its peak state in 3 to 4 months at most. Although the pair of Eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in his hands is slightly damaged, it will take at most half a year to recover. In other words, even if the fusion period of the Rinnegan is counted, it will take at most 8 or 9 months for Hyojin to obtain a pair of Rinnegan, so it is indeed necessary to plan in advance. First update. Chapter 671. Wow, this hole is bigger than I thought. I really don't know how Sama made it. Holding the edge of the broken dome of the Sky Fortress, Xiang Lin looked around curiously and exclaimed. Down below, Gaara had a helpless look on his face. I heard from the instructor that it was caused by an accident when Sama was training. Well, come down quickly, it's very dangerous up there. The instructor in Gaara's mouth is the 3 generations of Kazekage puppets who are responsible for taking care of their daily lives and supervising their daily training. Humph, I haven't seen it clearly yet. After a pause, Xiang Lin waved to Gaara below. Hurry up, go up a little bit, I still want to see outside the dome. Gaara had no choice but to lift up his hands and control the sand carpet, holding Xiang Lin to move up another half a meter, faintly lifting Xiang Lin out of the hole in the dome. Who allowed the 2 of you to come here? Suddenly, a cold voice came from the Sky Fortress. Gaara was taken aback. He didn't sense someone approaching at all, so his hands that were controlling the sand trembled slightly, causing the sand carpet holding Xiang Lin to tilt. Ah! As the sand carpet tilted, Xiang Lin, who was stretching her neck to look outside, immediately fell down with a cry of alarm. Gaara's expression froze. Oh no! Just as Gaara was about to control the sand carpet to catch Xiang Lin falling, a figure flashed silently in front of his eyes, and before the sand carpet arrived, the figure grabbed Xiang Lin and firmly lifted her in his hand. Gaara hurriedly greeted the figure and bowed deeply to the figure. My lord! Obviously, the person who grabbed Xiang Lin in his hand is none other than Hyojin, who is preparing to transplant the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan into Xiang Lin. Putting Xiang Lin on the ground, Hyojin glanced at the 2 of them and said, Didn't I tell you not to approach this area until the repair is completed? Gaara lowered his head, not daring to look at Hyojin's eyes. Xiang Lin spat out her tongue. My lord, please don't blame Gaara, I was curious and dragged him here. Hyojin snorted lightly. It seems that I underestimated the 2 of you, the training tasks assigned to you are too few, I didn't expect you to have the leisure to be curious about other things. Listening to Hyojin's words, Gaara and Xiang Lin had a bad feeling and looked at each other bitterly. Hyojin said coldly, From today onwards, the daily training tasks will be doubled. I will let the instructor supervise the whole process. If the 2 of you can't finish it, you are not allowed to sleep. The daily training tasks assigned by Hyojin for Gaara and Xiang Lin are actually not few. Compared to other children of the same age, such as Hyojin's shinobi, Gaara and Xiang's training can be called heavy. It's just that these 2 children are talented. Once they get used to the daily training, they gradually don't feel that it's hard. In addition, both of them are at the age where curiosity is the strongest, so after completing today's training tasks under the supervision of the instructor, the Kazekage puppets of the 3 generations, they secretly ran to the damaged part of the Sky Fortress. As soon as they heard that the daily training workload will be doubled, Gaara and Xiang Lin immediately cried and replied weakly, Yes. Xiang Lin, come with me. With that, Hyojin walked towards the laboratory. After making a face at Gaara, Xiang Lin trotted to catch up with Suijin and asked curiously, Sama, where are you taking me? Hyojin glanced at Xiang Lin. His eyes focused on the black-rimmed glasses on Xiang Lin's face and asked, Are these glasses good? Xiang Lin hurriedly nodded. After wearing the glasses you gave me, I can see much better. The black-rimmed glasses that Xiang Lin was wearing at this time were bought by Hyojin on the road when he took her away from the Kusanabu village. Xiang Lin is almost impeccable in all aspects. If you have to find a flaw in her, it would be that her eyes are not very good. There is a certain degree of vision defect. The reason for this, Hyojin feels that it is mostly because of the serious lack of nutrition when her body is developing, which has affected the development of her eyes. Hyojin asked, I have a pair of very good eyes here, do you want them? Xiang Lin was puzzled, but I already have eyes? Hyojin smiled, I can change a pair of eyes through surgery, so you don't have to wear glasses every day. Xiang Lin was a little moved, really? Hyojin nodded lightly. Xiang Lin quickly asked, Then what kind of eyes do you want to change for me? Hyojin didn't say anything more, directly led Xianglin to the laboratory, and then handed the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan stored in a small nutrition tank to Xianglin's hand. Looking at the pair of eternal Manjikyu Sharingan soaked in the nutrient solution, Xianglin became more and more curious. Sun-sama, why are these eyes red? Hyojin explained, they are called eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, a rare treasure in the shinobi world. Even if ordinary people get their hands on them, they won't be able to control them. And those who have the bloodline of the Uzumaki clan happen to have the ability to control them, so I will now give the decision to you. Whether you want to change the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan or not, it is up to you. Giving the decision to Xianglin is Hyojin's decision from the beginning. He can indeed order Xianglin to transplant the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan, but it doesn't make sense to do so. If Xianglin is not willing, then in the future, transplanting the Rinnegan will not only not be a life-saving measure, but will also become a hidden danger. Uchiha Madara is the best negative example. He thinks he can control everything, but Nagato and Obsidian, who he regarded as chess pieces, have betrayed him one after another, making all the arrangements he left for his resurrection before his death become ridiculous and useless. Therefore, on this issue, Hyojin will not force Xianglin, everything is up to Xianglin. Okay. However, to Hyojin's surprise, Xianglin agreed without thinking about it. Hyojin frowned. Don't you want to think about it? Xianglin smiled and said, you brought me here because you want me to transplant these eyes, so there is no need to think about it, I will listen to your arrangement. Taking a deep look at Xianglin, Hyojin didn't say anything more and immediately began the operation. For today's Hyojin, such a small operation is not difficult at all, so it only took him a short quarter of an hour to successfully transplant the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan into Xianglin's eye socket. After completing the operation, Hyojin observed the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan in Xianglin's eye socket and asked, how do you feel? After a while, Xianglin suddenly exclaimed, wow, I can see it so clearly. Hyojin threw Xianglin's black-rimmed glasses into the trash can and said with a smile, it seems that I won't need it in the future. Xianglin hurriedly ran to the trash can to pick up her glasses and carefully wipe them. Hyojin asked, why did you pick it up? Xianglin smiled brightly at Hyojin, because this is the first gift you gave me. Second watch. Chapter 672. Looking at the clean and bright smile on Xianglin's face, Hyojin shook his head and said, it's just a pair of glasses. Xianglin smiled and didn't speak, but carefully put the black-rimmed glasses into his pocket. Xianglin, who witnessed the tragic death of her mother, and Mira, who became a pillar of strength and was hated by everyone around him, are different from ordinary children. Their childhood was filled with endless darkness and tragedy. Hyojin's care for them is very ordinary in Hyojin's eyes, but in their eyes it is extremely precious, because it is the appearance of Hyojin that fills the most missing part in their hearts. Not continuing to talk about the glasses, Hyojin packed up the surgical equipment and said, if there is any discomfort with these eyes, you must tell me in time. Compatibility is a very mysterious thing. Even if Xianglin has the bloodline of the Uzumaki clan, there is still the possibility of rejection with the eternal Manjikyu Sharingan. Xianglin nodded, then bounced to a mirror, looked at it and exclaimed, my lord, why did my eyes turn black again? Hyojin explained, the Sharingan will only turn red when it is activated. This pair of eternal Manjikyu Sharingan is in a state of exhaustion, so after being transplanted into Xianglin's eye sockets, it automatically fell into dormancy. This is somewhat similar to the situation of Nagato transplanting the Rinnegan, but the Rinnegan transplanted to Nagato by Uchiha Madara is actively dormant to reduce the burden on the young body of Nagato, while this pair of eternal Manjikyu Sharingan is passively dormant. Xianglin asked curiously, Sama, how do I activate it? Hyojin shook his head. This pair of Sharingan is currently in a state of exhaustion due to some other reasons. It needs to be nourished for a period of time, so during this time, you should not deliberately activate it, stimulate it. Seeing that Xianglin was a little disappointed, Hyojin smiled and said, Don't worry. I'll guide you on how to use it when it's almost recovered. But before that, you can't slack off for even a moment. For a ninja, their own chakra's amount and chakra control ability are two major factors that determine the upper limit of their strength. Your chakra's amount is already very good, so as long as you work hard on chakra control, your future achievements will be limitless. Xianglin nodded, not fully understanding. Yes, I will work hard. After exhorting Xianglin to pay attention to some matters, Hyojin sent Xianglin away. After a while, the cawing of a crow suddenly came from outside the laboratory. Walking out of the laboratory, Hyojin saw a communication crow landing outside the laboratory. He immediately took out a communication scroll from the crow's leggings. Opening it, his face sank. This communication crow was sent by 4 generations Mizukage Yagura. Nagato gently nodded. The land of water is relatively isolated, it is a good place for him to hide. When the other Akatsuki members heard this, they also felt that it makes sense. There are a lot of uninhabited islands around the land of water. Danzo just needs to find a place to hide. It would be very difficult for others to find him. Just when Nagato was about to lead his people to the land of water to search for traces of Danzo, Zetsu suddenly poked half of his body out of the ground and reported to Nagato, Nagato, we have a major discovery. It is about Amatsukami. We have found the true identity of one of their members. What? All the Akatsuki members present were surprised after hearing this. Even Nagato, who has always been indifferent, was no exception. Zetsu continued, Not long ago, we encountered a new member of Amatsukami codenamed Xidagarba, although we couldn't catch him, but according to the ninjutsu he used, we have locked his identity. Nagato asked with a solemn expression, Who is he? Zetsu firmly said, Xidagarba of Amatsukami is Dedail of Rock Village. Nagato immediately ordered without hesitation, Let's go to Rock Village. First update. Chapter 673. Although Danzo is hateful, but compared to the threat of Amatsukami, it is not even worth mentioning, because for Nagato, Danzo is the kind of ant that can be trampled to death at any time, and there is not much difference between trampling him to death earlier or later. Therefore, when he learned about Amatsukami, Nagato didn't hesitate and immediately gave up on hunting Danzo and prioritized dealing with Amatsukami, which is more troublesome. Therefore, the members of Akatsuki immediately turned around and rushed towards the direction of the land of Earth. On the way, Zetsu briefly described to Nagato how he and Obsidian encountered Amatsukami's Xidagarba, and then said, I met Rock Village's Dedail once in the land of grass. He and Xidagarba used the same type of explosive clay, and both of them have the same build and age. Nagato, who was galloping forward, nodded lightly. This type of Kekai Genkai is not common in the shinobi world, so two ninjas using the same type of explosive clay, using the same type of ninjutsu, and having the same build and age are almost non-existent, unless these two people are the same person. Konan, who has always been wary of Zetsu, asked, Is there any more direct evidence? A member of Amatsukami shouldn't reveal his identity so easily, right? The surrounding members of Akatsuki also looked at Zetsu. They also felt that this matter is strange. With Amatsukami's cautious style, even a new member shouldn't leave such an obvious flaw. If not for Zetsu's solemn vow, they would have thought that this might be a scheme by Amatsukami to frame them. However, Zetsu shook his head and said with certainty, No, Dedail is Xidagarba. Nagato looked at Zetsu and asked, Why are you so sure? Zetsu replied in a deep voice, Because he knows dust release. Nagato's eyes narrowed, and there was no longer any doubt on his face. In today's shinobi world, only Inoki of the 3 generations has mastered the dust release, which is above the Kekii limit. If there is a second person who can master the dust release, then it can only be Inoki's direct disciple, the genius ninja of Rock Village, Deadale. At this time, Lil Nan's suspicions were also gone. As long as we capture Deadale, we can unveil the mysterious veil of God's organization. Uchiha Shinichi, who was at the end of the line, had the same eagerness on his face as the other Akatsuki members, but he couldn't help but curse inwardly. What the hell is the boss doing? How can he be so careless in recruiting new members? He actually recruited that crazy Deadale. Oh no, this is really bad. The members of the Akatsuki were the elites of the elites, plus their goal was clear this time, so there was no need to waste time searching separately. Therefore, in just a few days, they passed through several countries and arrived at the land of Earth where the Rock Village was located. Under the starry night, the Akatsuki group avoided the patrols of the Rock Village and quietly appeared on a high cliff on the outskirts of the Rock Village. The Akatsuki members, standing, squatting, sitting, or flying, lined up on the high cliff and looked at the Rock Village in the distance. Looking at the brightly lit Rock Village under the night sky, Onishi, who was carrying the double-bladed flounder on his shoulder, grinned and said, "Hey, I didn't expect the Rock Village to be so prosperous. It seems that the Mist Village is the only village that becomes gloomy at night." Misato, who was sitting on the edge of the cliff, looked gloomy. Ryu, who was squatting on the ground, curled his lips. Bipa Juzo, who was leaning on his sword, was expressionless, but a trace of nostalgia flashed in his eyes. Obviously, Onishi's words made the few mist renegades around him sigh with emotion. At this time, Zetsu, who was the first to enter the Rock Village to investigate, came out from the ground and said, "I have inquired. Deadale and the 3 generations of Tsuchikage-sama are in the village. It seems that they are in one of the practice fields exclusive to the Tsuchikage-sama, but there are more than a dozen practice fields exclusive to the Tsuchikage-sama in the Rock Village, so their specific location is still uncertain." Nagato asked lightly, "What about the 4 Tails Jinchuriki and the 5 Tails Jinchuriki?" Zetsu replied, "The 4 Tails Jinchuriki is still under house arrest by the Tsuchikage-sama. As for the 5 Tails Jinchuriki, his whereabouts are still unknown. He should be hidden by the Tsuchikage-sama. The 4 Tails Jinchuriki is a very experienced and bad-tempered rock ninja. Because of his bad temper, he didn't get along with the 3 generations of Tsuchikage-sama Inoki, so he left the village and wandered in the shinobi world. However, because of the last battle with Mai, the purpose of Akatsuki's capturing Jinchuriki was exposed, so the 3 generations of Tsuchikage-sama Inoki captured Purple, who was wandering in the shinobi world, back to the village and put him under house arrest. At the same time, Inoki also hid the 5 Tails Jinchuriki. Not to mention the ninjas from other villages, even the ninjas of Rock Village rarely know the whereabouts of the 5 Tails Jinchuriki. Shinichi suddenly said, "It is very likely that there are other members of Amatsukami hidden in the Rock Village, so it is best for us to find out the specific location of all the targets before we act." Conan echoed, "Well, the strength of the Rock Village itself is not weak, plus this place is likely to be the lair of Amatsukami. We should indeed be cautious." Nagato nodded. Shinichi volunteered and said, "I have the Manjikyu Sharingan, so it is easy for me to use Genjutsu to investigate the specific location of Deadale.